Welcome back to another FPL reaction stream. We're going to be reviewing Game Week 7 so far and looking ahead to Game Week 8, which is in a couple of weeks' time. We are approaching an international break after tomorrow's matches, but still plenty of football to talk about from Friday night between Bournemouth and Fulham, and of course a few games happening today, including a massive clash between Chelsea and Liverpool, and the Reds have experienced a taste of their own medicine in the last two Premier League matches, making it 3 consecutive losses for them across all competitions. I'll be dissecting my FPL squad. The only regret so far is benching Cody Gakpo. He was actually second on my bench, and he is on course to getting 7 points minimum. It might even be 8 or 9. Before Esteval's late winner, Gakpo was on course for 2 bonus points, so I'll be going through how the bonus point system is going to go in terms of that Chelsea-Liverpool game and also the other matches like Man United against Sunderland. Ruben Amorim lives to fight another day, and Arsenal doing the job, and you can't really ask for too much more there from them. And I have to say with Bournemouth, Semenyo, the star of the show so far, for those that captain him, fair play. He was in my top 3 captaincy options, and I was very bullish on Foden. We'll see how he does tomorrow if he starts the game, but yeah, Semenyo for me is currently the best FPL asset, especially in terms of his value. Erling Haaland might have something to say about that tomorrow, but those two are in a league of their own right now. Kevy says, yo, Caicedo done me wonders, still waiting on my triple captain Haaland to see how that plays out. Yeah, so with Erling Haaland, I did say this to you yesterday, the fact it's away from home and City, I want to say struggle at Brentford Stadium, but Phil Foden's the only City player to have scored at the GTEC Community Stadium. Erling Haaland has only been able to get an assist, so I would temper my expectations a little bit, but with the form he's in, you'd back him to score against absolutely anybody. He's the only player to have scored against Arsenal from open play this season. So I think Erling Haaland is obviously going to be a great choice for the triple captaincy. For those that kind of asked me when should I play it if I didn't go for it against Burnley, Gameweek 13 or 15 is my recommendation when he faces the newly promoted clubs at home. The problem by that stage is rotation. So maybe playing it earlier, like you're doing there, Kevy, plays to your advantage. Also, top of the league, says Kevy, and Martin Foster says, ole, ole, ole. Yeah, nice chant. Has a nice ring to it. Hopefully I can sing that by the end of the season. Cylindra says, decent week, but really disappointing because I have Richarlison and Dorgu. Yeah, I was quite surprised, actually, with Richarlison being benched, but it does make sense with Solanke and Colomwani still not quite there yet, and obviously Mateus Tel was left out of the Champions League squad. Yeah, it was good rotation by Thomas Frank. I think Spurs were a bit fortunate, actually. Leeds, really poor finishing. They should have gotten something out of the game, but quality obviously played a big part, and Kudus was the game changer with a goal and assist. So with Spurs, they got the job done, but they need to step up the performances because I felt that the earlier performances this season, so with Bournemouth being the exception where they got absolutely battered, I think in the other games, even in some of the other matches where they might drop points, they were looking much better. But yeah, I think the last week or so they have been a bit shaky. I lost out on 10 points. I sold Gakpo to Saka. It's still a great transfer long term. I know Gakpo looks quite decent against United. And by the way, in my Transfers podcast, I talked about holding Gakpo. It's just a shame I didn't start him. But yeah, Saka's going to be a massive upgrade. That's not a concern. He also scored from the penalty spot. His 100th goal contribution in his 200th Premier League appearance for Arsenal. Also kept Dorgu. Could have bought... By the way, I think it's 200th game in general for the Gunners. Yeah, ifs, buts and maybes though. And Jurrien Timber got 12 points, very close to DEFCON. He was actually on, what, 9 defensive actions, just shy of the 10 needed. And Bruno Fernandes, the only guy to blank in my starting 11, he was also one off from the 12 necessary for a midfielder to score DEFCON. It is what it is. Got Foden, Rodgers, Watkins and Haaland captain tomorrow. Yeah, that's a good position to be in. Like, if you compare it to my situation, I'm currently on a small red arrow, but I've got so many players left tomorrow that I'm quite confident a green will be secured, especially with Haaland captain. We'll see how he does. Barra says, is Reece James a good pick? His minutes will be managed, though. That's 3 consecutive starts and 3 consecutive 90-minute matches, but before that, he was benched in 3 consecutive games. So out of 7 matches so far this season, 4 starts, I think you'll see rotation between him and Gusto. Today, they both played together. That's not always going to happen. The best Chelsea defensive coverage is still Cucurella. He is probably a bit expensive, though, at 6.1 million. He got the winning assist today and played very well for the Blues. But yeah, Reece James, the minutes are all over the place. He's very injury-prone. I'm still not quite there yet, to be honest. If you want to take a punt, so be it. And they do have good fixtures, but rotation is possible, especially with the Champions League and Carabao Cup. Best 6 million or less mid, Paqueta. Paqueta's good, but he's not the best in my opinion. Caicedo, I've said this time after time again. He's also adding goals now. this season. That's his third of the campaign. So that's a nice habit to have. He's scoring DEFCON in virtually most matches. So yeah, Caicedo is still my favourite. Apart from that, Jacques is still decent, but of course a bit disappointing today. He was also booked. Had one good strike saved by Lamens, but didn't really do much else in the game. Yeah, I've always said Caicedo. Reinders would be up there. Elliot Anderson is okay, but he's not someone you'd buy right now. I think Caicedo's the standout, to be honest. Also, I like Minter, to be fair. I talked about him as a differential pick for Game Week 7 and beyond. Definitely are feeling good and was celebrating well, Dylan. I'll be honest, though, I was happy with a draw because, yeah, I mean, I'm not necessarily a fan of Chelsea, let's put it that way, and some people take offense to that. It is what it is, but yeah, I mean, if I had to pick a winner from this game, I'd obviously rather Chelsea win it. I don't think they'll be competing for the title. But yeah, I didn't celebrate it. I'm just being honest with you. I was happy that they got a result against them, but not necessarily the win. I think a draw would have been my ideal result. It is what it is. Weising says, Vamos Red Card FC. Nice. London brothers, so to speak. You're doing Arsenal a favour. Thank you very much. Kevy says, who do you think is a better asset for the next 5-6 game weeks, Rice or Enzo? Well, Rice hasn't blanked this season when he has started. Even in a game where he got 3 points, he actually scored a bonus. So Rice has been very consistent. He can get DEFCON, assists, goals. Yeah, and he's also on set pieces. So I do like Declan Rice, but it's still Enzo Fernandez for me. Also, can you talk about which Arsenal defenders? Yeah, I've always said this, by the way. Gabriel, for me, is the best Arsenal defender. And by the way, he's going to get 1 bonus point. He scored DEFCON, so that's 9 points overall. So that's not going to change. Gabriel's the best one. Timber would be second. He did win the penalty today. And to be honest, I know the Gunner should have had a penalty before that, but there is definitely a debate that it wasn't a penalty because the contact started outside the box. So I'm not sure exactly what happened there. I was watching Argentinian commentary for that game, actually. But yeah, Timber would be second. I think White will still get some minutes and starts in the Premier League and Champions League, which we saw in midweek against Olympiacos. Gabriel is the safest from rotation, but their defensive depth is absolutely wild that, you know, even, you know, let's say against the West Ham, for example, they can rotate and still get the job done defensively. So, yeah, Gabriel first, Timber second. Nothing's changed even after today. Yeah. Slot brought Endo on over Chiesa. So bloody pissed, man. Well, with Chiesa, he was struggling with some injury issues. I think that probably played a big part. And Liverpool were the better team in the second half. And if I'm being completely frank, I know Chelsea did very well. They were the better team in the first half, but Liverpool still had the better chances throughout the game. They shouldn't have lost that match. They really shouldn't have. But Liverpool have some big problems defensively, and their midfield isn't gelling right now. So you can obviously criticise Wirtz and Isak, and they deserve the criticism. Isak got the assist today for Gakpo, and Wirtz had a great play for Salah, who should have buried that chance. But yeah, the midfield balance is probably Liverpool's biggest dilemma, alongside Konate, who has been terrible this season. 22 points only so far. It's worrying. If you've got a lot of players left tomorrow away saying, I wouldn't be too concerned. You know, maybe my situation's a bit different. But yeah, I can only speak for myself, right? Not everybody, but if you got, let's say, 5-6 players left, and for some of you might be more, I'd be very confident. QPR Isaac says, absolute stink of a game week so far. Please, Watkins and Diane Gordon do bits, I beg. I think 1 or 2 of them should do pretty decent. And Everton are a bogey team for Crystal Palace. I'm hoping that Ndai does the business, but no offense, I just hate Ollie Watkins in FPL. I knew once I sold him he would do the business against Fulham. I'm really hoping he doesn't here, but he probably will. Mishi says Esteval. So we've got a few Chelsea fans in the chat. Wei Seng is another one. He says, should I sell Van Dijk to Gabriel? Well, I think long term it makes sense. Now, Arsenal sometimes do better against the top clubs in the country, and they drop points or concede sloppy goals against, you know, mid-table teams or those they're expected to beat, like West Ham over the years, but that wasn't the case today. I still think it's an upgrade. Van Dijk is a good option. He'll score DEFCON. He's got a few goals in him, and Liverpool will still bounce back. It's 3 losses in a row across all competitions. I think they'll win their next game. I did back them to drop points against Palace and Chelsea, but I actually put draws, not losses there. But yeah, I would make that upgrade. Need to sell Gakpo and Xavi Simons as well. I don't think Gakpo's a sell against United at home. Not necessarily. Xavi Simons, big disappointment. Kudus is definitely the Tottenham attacker you want, but I wouldn't be investing right now in Spurs players. So yeah, I can see why you feel that way, but Gakpo isn't a sell. Not until Game Week 9, I'd say. ZX Trenix says, Bruno and Timber, 1 from DEFCON for me. Yeah, very frustrating, but you got 12 points from Timber, by the way. I believe it is. So you got the assist, the clean sheet, and 2 bonus points. So Very good return. Maybe you're correct, actually. I think it might be 11 points, not 12, but yeah, still decent. Boogly Doo says, went in Boomer over Bruno on Wildcard last week. So we're going to go through that very soon, actually, in terms of the bonus points and stuff, but he got the assist for the first goal. Great finish by Mason Mount, by the way. The control and also the way he uses the defender to kind of get in the way of roofs, and it's just a very precise finish. You got to give him credit for that. And Sesko also had a good goal there. It's a good performance from United. They deserved the win. And yeah, I put a 1-1 draw. A lot of people actually predicted a Man United loss. They got it wrong. So thank you to Ahmad for always supporting the channel. He says, my hands are up. I should have listened to you and played Gakpo over one of my 2 Spurs defenders. Right now, 7 wasted points. It might be more than that. I don't want to make you feel bad, by the way. And look, you are the one who suggested it, by the way. It wasn't like I was the one saying, oh yeah, Gakpo, just put him in. But because of the way you kind of framed it, I was just thinking, yeah, I think Leeds will score. I said 2-1 Tottenham in my prediction, so I felt it was better to start Gakpo. But look at me, I benched him as well, so we can share that sort of pain. He is not coming on for me whatsoever. Yeah, I agree, Dylan. This is not a burner account, by the way. This is a Dylan Mason, a different Dylan. Yeah, I think McAllister, quality player, but I think his preseason has been obviously, it was massively impacted in the summer. That's probably playing a big part in his performances, even for Argentina, not that great. Yeah, Isak assist, but still not good enough, to be fair. I think Isak isn't worth 10.6 million. Then again, you look at Gyökeres, you blanked, so you would have the advantage over them. But long term, you've also got Voltemada, Jared Bowen, Joao Pedro, who also blanked today. And yeah, Erling Haaland goes without saying. So we'll see how it goes in the end, but I still don't think Isak is worth investment just yet. For those that have him, he's obviously a hold, especially against Man United. Yeah, best 3 of Arsenal, Saka, Gabriel, Raya. I still like Gyökeres. I'm not saying we shouldn't go for him, by the way, but if you check my wildcard video, I talked about the opportunity of going for a differential in Saka, and now there'll be this narrative of, by the way, Saka took the penalty, so that means Gyökeres isn't on them. There is also an element that Saka was playing his 200th game for Arsenal, and he was also 1 goal contribution away from 100 for the club in the Premier League. So I think that also plays a part in it. I still think Gyökeres will be the first choice penalty taker, but we could see it being shared more often than I thought. I thought Gyökeres would take the vast majority of them. His penalty record speaks for itself. With Saka, you always have a bit of like a few doubts in your mind. He missed a crucial penalty against West Ham a few years ago. I thought he'd bury this one, but I just think with Gyökeres, you have no doubts about him finishing it. He played quite poorly, in my opinion. I know he does a bit of dirty work and it goes under the radar. He certainly helped the team, but I just felt in terms of his touches, also his finishing in general, I think Gyökeres was quite poor today. So yeah, best 3 of Arsenal would definitely be Gabriel, Saka and David Raya. So let's go through the bonus points. I think that's probably the thing to do right now. So let's see. Also going to refresh this because according to this page, it's still 1-0 Chelsea. That is not the case. So for the Bournemouth-Fulham game, there is no surprises here. Semenyo claimed all 3 bonus points. Sessegnon and Kluivert shared 2. And by the way, the goals from Semenyo and Kluivert were incredible. Which one do you prefer? Let me know in the live chat. Drop a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Our aim will be to get this to 200 likes. This will be the last piece of content for the next week. I'll be taking a bit of a break during this international break. And afterwards, I'll be back in full force with UCL Fantasy and FPL content. For Leeds 1, Tottenham 2, the bonus points have gone to Kudus with the goal and assist. Matthias Tell and Okafor will share 2 bonus points. Pedro Porro got the assist and claimed DEFCON towards the very end of that match. Arsenal 2, West Ham 0. So maximum bonus points have gone to Declan Rice against his former club. Jurriën Timber picks up 2 and Gabriel gets another bonus point. He has been really impressive in the last couple of weeks. In UCL Fantasy as well, he has been absolute gold for me. Unlike Bruno Fernandes, who is the only player to blank in my starting 11 so far this week, he was 1 defensive action shy from getting the 12 necessary to score DEFCON. So the bonus points have gone to Benjamin Sesko and also Matthijs de Ligt and Mount and also Lamens. They all share 2. And Lamens, by the way, very solid performance on his debut. Shout out actually to a friend of mine. He was convinced Lamens would start when I talked to him yesterday. So yeah, Jamie Santos, you know who you are. Yeah, that's a good shout. With Chelsea 2, Liverpool 1. So Caicedo gets maximum bonus points after a thunder strike to put Chelsea ahead. Cucurella gets 2, and also Esteval. Yes, no bonus points for Gakpo. I'm celebrating because he's on my bench. The game's the game. That's all I'm going to say. But it was a mistake of mine in hindsight. I just didn't think he'd score. His record away from home is quite poor. And I thought one of Salah, maybe Wirtz or Isak would score for Liverpool. Let's also go to the FDR, the fixture difficulty rating. West Ham are top with their new manager, Nuno Espirito Santo. I think they were quite poor today. Their kind of game plan was to just sit very deep, frustrate Arsenal, and hit them on the counter, but they had no shots on target. I still think Jared Bowen is a quality FPL asset. Aaron Bissaka will be the first choice right back for them, but Diouf is my favourite West Ham defender overall, so I think having 1 or 2 West Ham assets could be quite decent in the long term. Chelsea, Crystal Palace, Sunderland and Man City are in the top 5, so it goes to show you how quickly the FDR can change, because going into Game Week 7, Arsenal were top until Game Week 12. Now they're down in 9th. For those near the bottom, we've got Man United, Newcastle, Liverpool, Bournemouth and Leeds. Even Aston Villa are right down there. With predicted points, Erling Haaland is top again, but technically he's joint top with Mohamed Salah, and this is just my initial thoughts, by the way, but I still think Salah could be the best captaincy option against Man United. Mateta is 3rd. Isak, Semenyo are all up there with Foden, Szoboszlai, Bruno Fernandes, Ismail Assar and Ollie Watkins in the top 10. But this will certainly change, especially with yellow flags, injuries, these international break kind of voodoos and all this jazz, you know, people mysteriously missing from their squads and stuff like that. So we'll see how it all turns out. So this is, well, let's see, actually. Let's put this in and see what the AI recommends. This is not something it's not something I always use, by the way, but it can be quite interesting. I'm not sure why it's doing all this, by the way, because I had it all set up. Yeah, okay, whatever. Can you just... Okay, now it's just logging me out. I don't know what's happening with this website. But, yeah, let's check and see what they're saying. So I did make 1 late transfer during my deadline stream, and that was Chris Wood to Nick Voltemada. So let's optimize the team for Game Week 8 and see what they suggest. So starting Dubravka over Sanchez, which I did this week. We'll see how he does against Aston Villa tomorrow. Starting Lacroix, Gabriel and Pedro Porro with a midfield 5 of Semenyo, Fernandes, Gakpo, Reinders and Ndai. Haaland and Joao Pedro up front. On my bench, Sanchez, Voltemada, Konsa and Reinildo Mandava. I have to say, though, my current feeling is to start Voltemada over probably Bruno Fernandes or Ndai. I think Ndai is the one who would drop to the bench. That is my current feelings on how to set things up for Game Week 8. And if we look at AI transfers, let's see what they come up with. So they're really bullish on Mateta. They actually talked about going from Chris Wood to Mateta last week, and instead I went for Voltemada as a 1-week punt. It is quite likely I'll wildcard in 8. That also depends on injuries and stuff like that, because it's not a terrible team. I could still be quite competitive without activating that chip and maybe holding out until Game Week 13, which is also a possibility. But I think Game Week 8 is the most likely in terms of my wildcard, and that could also facilitate a Game Week 9 bench boost as well. With price changes, Semenyo will likely go up again to 7.9 million. Jurriën Timber and Sarr could also rise. For those that are set on wildcarding in Game Week 8, you might as well play the chip now and bring in these players who are about to go up and avoid those who are about to drop, which could also include players like Ben White. I'm pretty sure no one here has him, but you never know. Raul Jimenez, Lisandro Martinez. And yeah, the rest isn't really too fantasy relevant per se. But yeah, not many price changes happening at the moment. There were a few last night. I think Gyökeres and Saka went up, and a few others here and there. I think Voltemada might have been another one. And let's now go to a stats comparison of Bukayo Saka and Semenyo, who, in my opinion, are 2 of the best options on the wild card. So let's do that. Oh, not sure what's happened here. This might have to be a bit of live tinkering, so bear with me. But yeah, I'll get to your questions again very shortly. But yeah, right now, I've been saying this for a while. Even if you feel like it's too late on the Semenyo train, I'd still go for him. He is the best midfielder. There's no debate about it. I think Saka could eventually, you know, enter that sort of podium. He has been quite underwhelming this season, mainly due to injuries, just like Cole Palmer. But yeah, I think Bukayo Saka is still worth the investment. and he's also a differential way of covering the Arsenal attack. By the time we get to Game Week 8, that'll be a bit different, especially after that penalty against West Ham. Okay, so I think that will do. Okay. Okay, that should be fixed, I guess. All right, so yeah, that is my stats comparison, Semenyo and Saka. As you can see, Semenyo will lead in all of these metrics, and he's also played more minutes, which makes sense. He is a talismanic figure for Bournemouth. You could certainly argue for Arsenal that the goals will be shared, and their squad depth is insane. So even in fixtures like Crystal Palace or Burnley away, could Saka be given a rest? I know Palace isn't a team you'd want to rest players against, but I think Saka against Burnley, I'm not saying he will be rested, but he could have his minutes managed. Play 60, 70 minutes, maybe come on at half-time. This is not out of the equation. We saw that against Man City as well, albeit he was coming off the back of an injury. But yeah, Saka will start most games for Arsenal, but I think Arteta has been more mindful this season and rotating very well so far. So just to go to FPL.team, a great website to visualize future game weeks. There is this plan to buy Saka and Sarr for Gakpo and Bruno Fernandes for a -4 hit, but I'm not entirely sure it's worth it. As much as I like Sarr and Saka, and I would recommend them on the wildcard, it might be worth keeping at least one of Gakpo or Fernandes for that clash in a couple of weeks' time between Liverpool and Manchester United. So that'll be talked about in my team selection the week after this one, so stay tuned for that. The same goes for my transfer tips for Game Week 8, where I highlight 11 players to buy, hold, sell, and skip. Sometimes I also talk about 1 week punts, players out to the watch list. There will be a best wildcard squad as usual, and deadline and reaction streams until the end of the season. You also get different pieces of content like my chip strategy guide, which is out on the channel, not just for FPL, but also UCL Fantasy, where I also do limitless and wildcard teams every single match day, team selections, deadline streams, which are very hectic to say the least. We'll be getting to 37,000 subscribers probably by the end of the month, with the UCL Fantasy videos returning after the international break. What about FPL Challenge though, you might be asking? Well, not too shabby so far. 31 points because Gabriel will get a bonus, and this week any clean sheets for midfielders, defenders and goalkeepers will mean double the points for the clean sheets, and Gabriel of course getting 13 in general with that bonus point. Semenyo has also done very well, so a great start to FPL Challenge, also quite promising in FPL, but I still have a lot of players left tomorrow to secure that green arrow. Nick Pope, Mark Gay, Phil Foden captain, and Watkins is what I'm left with, and I could still go to Erling Haaland up front if necessary, but yeah, maybe a slight regret about not captaining Semenyo in FPL Challenge, but I've been very bullish about Foden from the beginning with his brilliant record against Brentford. That probably means he'll blank tomorrow, as usual. So, let's go to my scoreline predictions before revisiting all these questions. So let's actually analyze how I've done so far. I went for 1-0 Bournemouth, so correct result, but not scoreline. Also with Tottenham, that's the only one I've gotten completely right so far. 2-1 victory for them. With Arsenal, I predicted them to keep a clean sheet and win quite comfortably, but it was 2-0. And I think they did spur some big chances. I think 3-0 actually could have been maybe the fair result, so to speak. With Man United, Sunderland 1-1, and obviously United did win 2-0. And I went for a draw. I thought Liverpool would drop points again, just like I predicted against Palace, but they went one better, or worse, by losing both matches. I've gone for 3-2 Aston Villa against Burnley, 2-1 Everton against Crystal Palace, Newcastle 2, Nottingham Forest 0, Wolves 2, Brighton 3, and Brentford 1, Man City 3. You'll also see how I did in terms of predicted lineups, but yeah, it's a pretty good success rate so far. So before this weekend, I had 88% for all 20 Premier League clubs combined, and really it's Wolves dragging me down. Otherwise, it's quite comfortably into the 90% territory on average, but that'll be discussed in future podcasts. Maybe there could be another predicted lineups on the horizon in a couple of weeks' time. So let's go back to my amazing FPL squad, where Pedro Porro got me 7 points, Gabriel will give me 9, Semenyo with 18 points, so I kind of forgive him. And by the way, a correction to what I said, Bruno Fernandes is not the only player to have blanked in my starting 11. Joao Pedro is another. But yeah, Bruno Fernandes, one defensive action away from DEFCON. The less said, the better. So welcome, Martin Phillips. Good to see you. Van der Ven, is that? Or Van Dijk for Anderson? I'll be honest, I've never liked Joachim Andersen too much as an FPL asset, especially with these upcoming fixtures. I think yesterday many people asked about him, should I start him or Virgil van Dijk and stuff, and I just was quite consistent saying Van Dijk. I would not start Andersen. That's not worth it in my opinion. I mean, you could certainly argue selling Van Dijk to Andersen gives you a lot of money, but I'd rather go to a different defender. Do you think Man City can win the league? They can. I don't think they will, and I hope they don't, but I think City are still third favourites. Right now, because the momentum shifts a little bit, you know, people might say, oh yeah, Arsenal, you know, they should definitely capitalise, but I still think Liverpool, with the spending, being Premier League champions, and also the mentality they've got, they are still the favourites for me. But yeah, I don't think City would be... They are in the conversation for me. They still need a bit of ground to make up on because of the early results. You can't lose to Tottenham at home and also lose against Brighton after being 1-0 up, so those results weren't good enough. Yeah, 75 points is really good there, oh dear. Good evening, Dylan. Gyökeres or Isak? I still prefer Gyökeres, but this is the thing, as you're saying. You've got Saka and an Arsenal defender. You might also be tempted to get David Raya in goal. Now, Calafiori is a good option. He is first choice at left back, but he's injury prone, and hopefully he keeps staying fit, because I do like him as a player. He's also quite exciting to watch. He gets a bit of a free roll in that left back spot, so he's basically drifting to the right sometimes and also bombing forward. But my favourite Arsenal defender, as I've always said, is Gabriel. Timber would be second. Yeah, it just depends on your situation. If you need a goalkeeper, I'd buy Raya. And then maybe up front you can go for one of Bowen or Voltemada, maybe even both, to partner Erling Haaland. Probably Duncan, but let's not forget Bruno did score at Anfield last season, and if United get a dodgy pen and he actually scores it this time, then you're looking at a massive return. Well, Saka took the penalty today, and Gyökeres was on the pitch, but like I mentioned before, it was also Saka's 200th appearance for Arsenal. He was also 1 goal or assist shy from 100 goal contributions, so that might have played a part as well. This doesn't mean that Saka will take every penalty this season. I'm convinced that will not be the case. I think Gyökeres will take plenty of penalties for Arsenal. Thoughts on triple up Arsenal defence? Not for me. Best defence in the league in my opinion. Only 3 goals conceded all season in 10 matches, but I think a double up is the best thing to do, and then go for Saka in the midfield or Gyökeres up front. Take your pick. Saka's my preference, as I mentioned, going into Gameweek 7, but I still think Gyökeres will come good in terms of the goals. I just said that, Martin. Gabriel for me is better. Yeah, I'm not sure why I'd bench Gabriel against West Ham, I'm not going to lie, but maybe you've got a good reason for that. How about no? I mean, Fulham are a bogey team. I wouldn't discount them getting a result. Their overall record against Arsenal is quite poor. A bit like Newcastle, but of course in recent years it has changed a little bit. But yeah, Arsenal need to go and beat Fulham away. There's no questions about it. They had to win today, capitalise. And yeah, if Arsenal keep this going, because they have quite a few injuries as well to contend with. Martin Odegaard has been so unfortunate. I mean, he's the first player in Premier League history to be subbed off at half-time in 3 consecutive games. It's incredible. But I think Arsenal are doing quite well, managing the injuries and rotation, playing every 3 or 4 days like they did this week. And these were matches which they've struggled in the past. You know, West Ham, they lost the last 2 meetings at home against them. Olympiacos, a bit of a bogey team in the Champions League and Europa. And Newcastle, I mean, yeah, that's a very difficult fixture away from home. Cooker says, disaster week for me. Look, if you still got 5 or 6 players tomorrow, there is a bit of hope. So, yo, Dylan, big up. I've got 38 points of Minter, Haaland, Captain, Pope, Ismail Assar, Richards, Reinders. That's not a disaster week. I have to disagree with you there. It's not an amazing score, but you've still got some good players left tomorrow, especially Haaland, Captain, and I do like Minter this week. Sar's a great long-term pick, and Pope might be one of the best goalkeepers this week anyway. Yeah, 40-07 left. That's a good position to be in. The same goes for Man City are finished with 57 and 4 left. Rare Man United W, and more rare that we played well. Yeah, it was completely deserved. I think, yeah, United played some good football. It's still obviously like 1 win. The problem with United is they can't get 2 or 3 wins in, on the bounce and then build upon that. So Liverpool away next is going to be very difficult. I personally think Liverpool will win that game, but United have frustrated them at times. And, of course, got a good result at Anfield last season. But I think Liverpool will get the job done, just giving my opinion. Cucurella on my bench, yikes. Yes, I did go through the bonus points earlier. He got the winning assist. But, yeah, let's just go through that again. So, Cucurella, he didn't get DEFCON, which is a good thing for you. He was 1 defensive action shy from getting defensive contribution points, if I'm not mistaken. I'll double check that. I'm refreshing FPL as well and seeing if that's the case. Yeah, so unless FPL retrospectively give additional, defensive contributions to Bruno Fernandes, Cucurella, and Timber, it looks like they're all one DEFCON or defensive contribution shy of scoring those 2 additional points. But yeah, the bonus points, as I covered before, I don't think Cucurella's on them, but I'll have a look just in case and make sure. I mean, if it's 5 points, it's not great, but it's not the end of the world, is it? Yeah, the DEFCON. Yeah, he got 2 DEFCON. Sorry, 2 DEFCON. He got 2 bonus points. So 7, just like me with Gakpo. It is frustrating, yeah. It's not the end of the world, though. It is what it is, right? I think it makes sense to bench him against Liverpool. Salah or sell? I've said this before with Salah. If you don't have Haaland yet, I definitely sell Salah to get Haaland. I've been saying this for the last couple of weeks now. I pulled the trigger in Game Week 6, and arguably that's a bit too late. But even something like Salah to Saka, for example, this week, I mean, yeah, you would have gained a few points from it, but it's not like a massive swing anyway, in my opinion. Long-term, Saka does look more appealing, but his minutes could still be managed, which I've talked about as well. Yeah, Caicedo on my bench. My gut was told him to play instead of Pedro. Yeah, look, I said yesterday to play Joao Pedro. I just thought he was more likely to score. But guess what? Caicedo was the one scoring a fantastic goal. And yeah, he's got a few of them in his locker this season. He's scoring some really good goals against Brentford, against West Ham he scored, and now today. And in terms of defensive contributions, if we go back to it, Caicedo was 1 away. Just like Enzo Fernandez, both of them so close. From Chelsea, only Reece James scored defensive contributions. Yeah, good thing that Gakpo was 2 away and didn't score DEFCON as well. That would have been very frustrating if I see a 9 points on my bench. Yeah, Onesie Celsius, someone tell FPL to add the extra 1 DEFCON for Timber. You got 12 points, mate, or whatever it is, 11 points. Enjoy it. Basuno04 says, hey Dylan, nice to be here. Love that Borro and Kudus performance today. Got 5 left to play. Yeah, they played very well from an FPL perspective. I know Borro got that FPL assist. He got the DEFCON points. Kudus played really well. So definitely deserved the maximum bonus points and man of the match. I still think Spurs were quite shaky though. And ultimately it's 3 games in, 7-8 days? It's quite a difficult period to manage. To go unbeaten there, to get results against Brighton a few weeks ago, went 2-0 down, and against Bodo Glimt shows character. But some of the performances are a bit worrying, in my opinion. But Thomas Frank has done well up until this point. It's a good league position, and I think Spurs might be favourites to finish 5th in the Premier League this season. MMK says, I'm so happy Chelsea won, dealing with so many injuries and still got 3 points. That is true. Today as well, you saw Achimpong being subbed off due to injury. Levi Cole, of course, is injured anyway. I mean, Hato is a good player to come on. He's a centre-back and left-back by trade. Personally, I think he should be starting, but hasn't really made an impression yet at Chelsea. But yeah, quite a lot of injuries at the moment for Chelsea, and they're doing quite well, at least today. But personally, I think Liverpool should have gotten a result. I really feel that way, and they'll be kicking themselves for missing some gilt-edged chances. So glad I bench boosted Caicedo on my bench. Yeah, I'm not sure who you've got elsewhere. Well, who else you've got on your bench, but yeah, I mean, that'll be pretty decent. Lima FPL says, an interesting week for sure, but really don't know what moves to make. Gyökeres switch to Saka might end up being popular. Yeah, that's a good thing for those that haven't wildcarded yet. You can just easily get to Saka if you're kind of tempted to do that, but that can swing one week to the other. Maybe Saka blanks against Fulham and Gyökeres scores the winning goal. It can definitely swing the other way, but what I like about Saka is the low ownership. And in terms of penalties, I still think that will be shared and Gyökeres can take quite a lot of them. But of course, on this occasion, it was Saka. Why is Caicedo not yet been given 2 points? Because he didn't get 12 defensive actions, mate. It was 11. For midfielders and forwards, they need to have 12 defensive contributions to score the 2 additional points. For defenders, it's 10. That's why he hasn't gotten the 2 points. He might even get them retrospectively, though, because, I don't know, FPL love to change things. They look up the stats and then make some adjustments. And those playing on the Saturday have that advantage because that can be amended by the end of the Sunday games. In terms of those playing tomorrow, they won't have the same luxury. Lucas Dunn says, I've had a really miserable week, only on 32 points with 5 players played. I wouldn't call that miserable, though. 6 players left. If you captain Haaland, you could technically say that's 7 players left. I don't think that's... sorry, 7. That's bad maths. 6 players left. It's not that bad, in my opinion. Hi, Dylan. Great week for me with 62 points and up to 409k with Haaland captain, Foden, and Rangers left to play. Yeah, I think one of Haaland or Foden will surely come good. And honestly, I wouldn't mind a Rangers haul either. I'm not too confident about that, though. DS says 56 with Haaland captain and Gordon to play. Yeah, good score so far, but only 2 left. Yeah. I'd always rather have points on the board instead of players in hand, but not sure how to feel about that. I think a lot of people have plenty of options on the Sunday left to play. Have Gyökeres and Bruno with only 1 free transfer, will likely ride out for another week and then decide. I wouldn't be surprised to see Gyökeres take the next pen. Exactly that. Just because Saka took it today, it doesn't mean that Gyökeres will not be taking penalties for Arsenal. Trust me, he will get plenty of them, if they're awarded, of course, in the future. Basuna says, I've got the exact money to do Bruno to Saka. What do you think? Well, according to livefpl.net, which I showed you earlier, I don't think Saka will go up in price tonight, so I wouldn't be making a transfer yet, but if you see that there is that potential swing and you'll be priced out of the move, then yeah, I'd just go for it. But as long as you can kind of hold out for as much as you can, it's probably worth having the information instead, because we've also got the international break. A lot could happen, even in tomorrow's matches, and you might have a bigger issue moving into Game Week 8 than Bruno Fernandes to Saka, which is an upgrade, but both Fernandes and Saka can score in their respective fixtures anyway. We'll monitor the price changes, but would you do it during the international break? I'd say yes if there's a risk of the swing of the prices and then you're priced out of it. I get that, but I don't think that's a risk just yet. Gyökeres is not a sell, no. But I did say this in my wildcard video. I think Raya, Gabriel and Saka is the best triple up in Arsenal right now, but Gyökeres is still very solid. It's just, I think in the last couple of matches, he's done some dirty work. He's done some good things for Arsenal, but I think today in particular was a poor performance from him. Sri Holmes says, I have money for Gyökeres or Isak. Yeah, I'm not so sure about that. Isak or Ekitike. We could see Isak start in the Champions League, for example, in matchday 3, and Ekitike starts against United. So I'm not so sure about that sort of switch. Until we have clarity on that situation, or one of them gets injured or suspended long term, then I think you just go for a more nailed option. Between those, it's still Gyökeres for me. But to cover Arsenal offensively, I've said this for the last couple of weeks now, I do prefer Saka a little bit more. Not by much, though. It's still not like a massive swing or like a clear favourite. And you've also got Voltemada, Jarrod Bowen. I'm really appealed by them in the long term, actually. I just bought Voltemada as a 1-week punt. I backed Newcastle to win quite comprehensively, and my plan was to wildcard anyway in Game Week 8, so I'm quite consistent about that. I'm not sure if you put this comment as well in a video of mine, but I did reply to it, and I said, this has suffered a setback. So he was originally going to be out for 4 to 5 weeks. He is now out for 8 weeks. So that means he'll be back in early November maybe, or maybe up until December. So it's going to be a long injury layoff for Vissa. I think Voltemada is a pretty good pick until Vissa's back. 51 points so far, says John the Great. Yeah, that's pretty good. It also depends on which players you've got left. The bonus points will be added soon. Don't worry about that. In terms of DEFCON, though, they were both 1 away from achieving it, but don't be surprised if they are randomly allocated extra defensive contributions tomorrow. Hopefully that happens with Bruno Fernandes, but I doubt it. Relax Eye Gamer says, good evening, Dylan. Hope you are well. So far, I'm on 45 points with Gakpo on the bench. Yeah, I'm quite frustrated about that as well, but it is what it is. Sell Xavi Simons. Well, Spurs have a poor fixture swing. Xavi Simons has 1 assist so far from a corner. I think Kudus is the best Spurs attacker, but I wouldn't be investing in him right now. Obviously, Semenyo is the standout. If you can stretch to Saka, that'd be perfect, but going from Simmons to Star is quite a good upgrade as well. Yeah, Saka and Gyökeres is a decent double-up, of course, and that will be differential as well, right? But I think long-term it's still Raya, Gabriel, and Saka as the sort of triple-up, and I'd rather double up defensively than on the attack. Yeah, Fernandes to Saka, I think it's an upgrade. I'd personally do it. If I had enough money, I'd probably pull the trigger, but not just yet because we've got Sunday matches, then an international break where plenty could happen over the next couple of weeks. Chelsea have okay fixtures ahead, but João Pedro looked unbothered today. Yeah, he was also looked quite ineffective in recent matches. A lot of it has been influenced by the red cards, but today, that wasn't an excuse, of course. But Chelsea didn't create much in general, if we're being honest. Like, the Blues were very resolute. good defending, and they did well to manage the injuries. But if we're being real, Liverpool still created more chances. If they had their finishing boots on, maybe we're looking at a Liverpool win quite comfortably as well. So, yeah, ultimately it's determined by the result. Joao Pedro was disappointing. I think for those that want to go differential, selling Joao Pedro to Bowen or Voltemada could be worth the risk. And that's something I talked about going into Game Week 6 and 7. But I still think Joao Pedro is a hold in most situations, personally. Pieter says, Sesko is really good today and man of the match. I have no idea how Mbeumo doesn't have more goals, and there is a plus 15-point haul coming soon if he keeps playing the same way. Yeah, Mbeumo's been the best so far out of the new signings in terms of consistency. Sesko, it took him a while to get going, but I think in the last 2 matches, he has been United's best player, so I agree on that one. Yeah, I think Mbeumo right now looks like the best United attacker. Sesko could be worth a punt, but I certainly wouldn't be buying now against Liverpool away. I think the Reds will bounce back. Fernandes, Paqueta for Saka and Thiago, thoughts? Well, yeah, Paqueta to Saka is an upgrade. I get that. Wait, what? Fernandes and Paqueta to Saka and Thiago? Which Thiago are we talking about here? Because if it's Igor Thiago, you can't sell a midfielder to a forward unless you're playing like FPL draft or something. So I'm not sure, but yeah, Saka, great move. I think Paqueta is still decent. My favourite West Ham asset is Bowen. Diouf would be second, maybe Wan-Bissaka's third, and Kilman would also be in the top 5 for them, but yeah, I'm not so sure about that. The start in the game says, first time chatting here, but been watching your streams a lot. Is it time for me to sell Salah and Bruno now with constant blanks? I know it's difficult to stay patient with a player who costs 14.5 million, and it might go down very soon actually to 14.4, but I think Salah's a hold against United. Then, yeah, I'd be very open to selling in Game Week 9 or 10, but his record against United speaks for itself. I thought Salah could blank today. I mean, he was in my top 10 captaincy options, but quite low for his standards, and he hasn't been great this season. I think his best performance was in the Champions League against Atletico Madrid in matchday 1. So Bruno Fernandes, I'd say yeah, especially if you can go to Saka or Semenyo, of course. But with Salah, I'd keep him for 1 more week. If you don't have Haaland, making that switch in Game Week 9 is the best thing to do. What do you think about Gyökeres? He's still a hold for me, but I do like Bowen. If I wildcard in Game Week 8, it's very likely I'll go for Bowen. So Voltemada was bought in as a 1-week punt. I still like him long term until this is back. But I think a front 3 for me on the wildcard would be Haaland, probably Bowen, and maybe still Joao Pedro, but that's not certain. I'm keeping that option a bit open there. Yeah, Xavi Simons a sell, like I said before. FPL David says, I'm lucky I have Saka and Gyökeres. Yeah, that's the good thing about having both, but Arsenal can also share goals with other players like Martinelli, Trossard, Marino, and there's even more where that came from. Eze, Declan Rice. Everyone in that team can score for Arsenal, which is the good thing. So, obviously, the most likely will be Gyökeres and Saka, and I don't think Gyökeres is fully clicked yet. I knew Liverpool going to lose the moment Gakpo scored. The defence is mid-table at best. The thing is, though, Liverpool had good momentum. They started the second half very well. And even in the first half, where Chelsea were the better team in terms of the midfield and the pressing, Liverpool had the better chances. So it's just a defensive issue and the balance in the midfield, which is a big problem for Liverpool right now. I think once they get that sorted and the likes of Wirtz and Isak can start firing, they'll certainly be the favourites to win the league again. But with 3 losses in a row, that is definitely very worrying. Like I said before, I predicted drop points against Palace and Chelsea. I didn't expect them to lose both. But the real surprise for me was losing against Galatasaray. To do that, and also lose both league games, that is going to be like the major red flag for Liverpool. FPL David says, hey Dylan, is 39 points of Minter, Haaland captain, Ismail Assar, Pope Richards, Reinders, I'm guessing okay? Yes, it certainly is. I'd be quite confident. The same with Kylian, with 61 points. Only 2 players left. Haaland captain, technically free, but yeah, great rank. Hopefully you secured the green arrow, but the points on the board is solid. There's no disputing that. Shane01 says, would you sell Watkins and Bruno to Joao Pedro and Saka? Yes, I would. Now, could Watkins score against Tottenham away and Bruno against Liverpool away? They could, but the ceiling will be lower than Joao Pedro and Saka, who has a great record against Fulham as well. So I would do it. Do you need to pull the trigger now? Probably not. Even though I've made early transfers in, I think, Game Week 4 and 5, maybe even 6 as well, I don't recommend that during an international break. I don't think so. Yeah, Mount's looking good. Even against Arsenal, I think Mount played fairly well without getting any goals or assists. He has been one of United's best players, which isn't really a high bar. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I think Mbeumo's been United's best player this season. And also De Ligt, actually. Jose the Special Mo says 46 points, and Haaland, captain Tarkowski, and Donnarumma to play. Pretty decent. Yeah, I think 2 of those players should return. I think about 2 from free transfers, Bruno, Tarkowski to Sa and Timber. Yeah, I like those moves, yeah. Once again, though, I believe Gabriel's the best Arsenal defender. Timber would be second. And we could see White start a Premier League game fairly soon. We saw that in the Champions League. I warned people when you see your fantasy. For me, Timber's going to play against Olympiacos or West Ham, one or the other. And yeah, once we saw that in the Champions League, I was like, yeah, Timber looks great for this week against West Ham, but longer term, I think that could be an issue. Jason Phillip says 53 points with Haaland, Ndai, and Big Gianluigi in goal. Yeah, looking decent. Good score. I like Haaland and Ndai. I also hope they both return. I've gone for a 3-1 City win, but Donnarumma is such a presence. Going into that Arsenal game, you know, if it was Trafford in goal, for example, who's a good goalkeeper, I would have been more confident of Arsenal winning. With Donnarumma, I was thinking it's going to be like very low scoring because he's such a presence. Shane01 says strikers hard to figure out this season. Yeah, they are, especially when Isak and Gyökeres haven't clicked yet. I still think they're in the top 3 best strikers in the Prem. Haaland is in a league of his own. It's worth saying. Well, it's probably like very obvious. I think Jarrod Bowen on the wildcard, or just from Gameweek 8 in general. West Ham are top of the FDR until Gameweek 13. I'd put Bowen's name in the hat. He did nothing today, but West Ham had no shots on target. They were very negative, and ultimately they did nothing today. So this is kind of like a write-off. Nuno will get this international break to work with some of these players, especially those that are not travelling with their countries. So yeah, Bowen would be up there. I like Voltemada. João Pedro has nice fixtures coming up. But with Chelsea, you've got Caicedo in the midfield and Enzo Fernandez, Cole Palmer once he returns, but I think that could be a while away still. So yeah, Gyökeres is still up there for me. In isolation, it'd be Haaland, Bowen and Gyökeres, but I also like Saka in the midfield, and I also like Ryan Gabriel. You can only have 3 players from a club, and with Arsenal, you don't need to triple up. 2 might be enough anyway, but yeah, in isolation, I'd still put Gyökeres up there. Weiseng says, actually, I'm planning to do Cash and Watkins to Gabriel and Voltemada. Yeah, makes sense. With Villa's fixtures turning for the worse, keep them against Burnley. I wish I did that with Watkins. In retrospect, Gabriel and Voltemada looks pretty good, but I do prefer Bowen over Voltemada, in my opinion. It's a lucky goal by Gakpo. Lucky or not, he got the goal. He's second on my bench. I'm not happy, but it is what it is. Yeah, Gyökeres blanking was a real bummer. He had a big chance. He should have scored. He kept falling over. He did battle a lot, and what I liked is the fact he opens up spaces for others, but with Gyökeres, he was signed to make the difference, to kill games, and to be an elite goal scorer. He had a good start. You know, 3 goals in the first 4 matches, but he's now blanked in 3 successive games. I wanted Gyökeres for Arsenal this summer. Yeah, I just think he needs to do a bit more, especially with the goal scoring. But I think he will come good. So Gas got Saka as a differential. Yeah, look, like I said, when you got a player of that quality as a differential, you know, the opportunity is there. I wish I took it myself with, you know, selling Bruno Fernandes, for example, but I felt Bruno still could have got a return against Sunderland. He was quite close, but yeah, Bruno's been terrible for me. Yeah, and Saka won't be a differential for long, but at least you got in there early. And now he's a very easy hold, one of the best mids in the Prem and also in FPL for the long term. Keep Bruno or sell to Saka, Gordon, Sarr. It would be Saka for me. I'd still find a way to buy Sarr if you can. And whilst I like Gordon, my favourite Newcastle attacker is Nick Voltemada up front. And if you don't have Semenyo, what are you waiting for? He is the best midfielder right now in FPL. The problem is, will Gakpo still have good minutes after the international break? Yeah, he still could. And against United, I mean, look, it's too early to say, is he going to start against United? But I think he will, for what it's worth. And he also played well against Galatasaray. I highlighted that going into the Gameweek 7 deadline yesterday. I know they got the bad result there, losing 1-0, but I think Gakpo was one of their better players. I think with Gakpo, if I don't wildcard in 8, I'll start him against United and then sell in 9. That's my plan. Gay in January, Kanate lacks brain cells. I just don't see that happening now, though. If anything, it'll happen at the end of the season, and by that point, you might have Bayern Munich knocking on the door and other clubs. I think Gay is a really good centre back right now. Yeah, 3 red cards in 3 successive games. Is that with Chelsea? I mean, there was 3 red cards in 4 matches. The only one they didn't pick one, didn't get a red card was against Lincoln. No. First choice, the penalty is Saka. Not necessarily, though. I mean, Gyökeres took one against Leeds. I think Saka wasn't on the pitch. He got injured there. Saka might still be first choice, but this is the thing. Arteta was asked about the best penalty taker at the club, and he said Gyökeres. This is just my opinion. I think the main reason Saka took it today is because it was his 200th game, a milestone for the club, and he was also 1 goal or assist shy from 100 goal contributions. So, in my opinion, it's just my opinion, if Arsenal had a penalty against Fulham, I think Gyökeres takes it. That's just the way I feel. We'll see. Richarlison to Bowen or Voltemada? Bowen. I like both of them, by the way. Obviously, for this week, I preferred Voltemada. That's why I bought him, and I'm open to wildcarding in 8, but long-term, it's Bowen. Yeah. I think Arsenal would be so much better if they went for Voltemada instead of Gyökeres. Voltemada's looked better so far, but it's too early to say. And Gyökeres against Newcastle had a good performance, in my opinion. He was linking up well, good passes, he was battling with the centre-backs, and his physicality is definitely pretty good, but I think today he fell over too much. His balance wasn't there, he missed a big chance, and he should be scoring more goals, especially against weaker opposition. But I think Gyökeres will score more. He had a very good start, let's not forget, with 3 goals in 4 matches, but the last couple of games have been disappointing in terms of the goals. Chelsea getting another red card this week, this time Maresca. Oh, wow. Okay, I wasn't aware of the Maresca thing. I did miss that as I was setting the stream up, but yeah, doesn't matter. Should be fine. Bruno's going to get another DEFCON. I hope so. Every little helps. My favourite moment of Man United match was Old Trafford crowd, given the biggest cheer when Lamins claimed just a basic cross the box. We've been starving. Well, yeah, and the goalkeeper situation has been dire for United all season. They had to get someone in. Lamins has potential. We'll see how he gets on. Very good performance on his debut, but yeah, Liverpool away will be a much tougher task, of course. Bruno to Saka, yes. Long term, it will pay off. Could Bruno score against Liverpool? He definitely could, but I would sell him. We better batter United after the international break. Like I said, with Liverpool, if you kind of analyse their games this season, against Bournemouth, I think they could have dropped points. Against Newcastle as well. And in fact, they probably got outplayed against 10 men, which was a big warning sign there already. Against Arsenal, I think that was like a draw, like a 0-0, but obviously the moment of quality won it. Fair play. I think after that, you look at some of the recent games, if anything, Liverpool might have deserved to win those games more, and yet they ended up losing them. So football isn't always fair from that perspective, but I think Liverpool will win. Not batter United, but they could win by 2 or 3 goals potentially. United are fairly decent in big games. I think City's the only exception this season, that 3-0 loss, and even then, United have had opportunities to score goals and create problems for Man City there. Best budget forward sub 6 million. Well, probably Isidore still, but I'm not a massive fan. Calvert-Lewin might have good fixtures, but every time I watch Leeds, he misses big chances. I just wouldn't go there personally. Kyle says I'm on 57 points, 5 players left. Depends who they are, but that looks really good on paper. Yeah. Thomas says Liverpool weren't closing down tonight. Did anyone else notice? Just letting Chelsea cross. Yeah, in terms of pressing, in terms of defensive work, Chelsea was certainly better. And from that perspective, you can certainly say they deserve to win. But look, in terms of big chances, the attacking play, Liverpool definitely had the tools to win that match, and they just failed to deliver. Don't bother yet. If I was you, don't sell Joao Pedro. I don't see why people are selling him. Well, it is a way to go away from the template, right? And you've got the likes of Bowen and Voltemada who are differentials. Gyökeres has great fixtures, but would I sell Joao Pedro to Gyökeres now? Not necessarily. I'd rather just keep Joao Pedro and cover Arsenal with Saka in the midfield. Pause Close says, thinking of doing Joao Pedro to Mateta. Yeah, I do like Mateta as well. That's another good shout up front. But Chelsea's fixtures look really good. That's the problem. That is the problem. If I was wildcarding, I'd probably have Joao Pedro. It's not a certainty. And if I had to build a top 5 forwards, I mean, Erling Haaland goes without saying. I probably wouldn't even include him in that debate. But I'd say Bowen, Gyökeres, Joao Pedro, Voltemada, and Mateta. Those are the top 5 forwards, bar the robot, the freak Erling Haaland. Salah to Saka. I have Salah and Haaland double up. I wouldn't sell Salah against United. No. So if you want Saka, do it in Game Week 9. He has a good record against Fulham. You might feel like it's an opportunity missed, but what about Salah's record against United, especially at Anfield? I would not be selling Salah. I know he played poorly today. He missed some big chances, but in the last couple of games, he has been getting those opportunities. In fact, his stats are probably up compared to the earlier matches where he was getting returns. So I think Salah is a hold against United and then a sell. Just scared of missing out on Palace's form. Yeah, that's fair enough. I think they could drop points against Everton. They are a bogey team, of course, for the Eagles, but yeah, I get that. I think one of Gay, Lacroix, Richards, or Daniel Munoz at the back, and then one of Saul Mateta is the sweet spot. So 2 players, 1 attacker, 1 defender. My favourites right now are Gay and Saar. I am too Lager, but we just look like we are letting teams play and not doing that extra yard. It's weird, not moving the ball fast or far enough. Yeah, maybe a bit of complacency. I think the structure and the balance isn't quite there yet at the moment. And look, Slot has done a great job at Liverpool so far, but one massive advantage he had last season was inheriting a Premier League winning squad. Yes, they didn't win the league the season before that. They finished 3rd, but they were top of the league until April. Then they collapsed at the end, but they had Premier League winners, people with that mentality to win. Salah had an incredible season, and Slot unlocked the best version of him. But yeah, now it's a bit different. You're kind of changing the whole attack. The likes of Darwin Núñez, by the way, for all the criticism he gets, and Diaz, who can be inconsistent, they are 2 of the best pressers in the forward line you'll see. And now they're both gone. You're getting different profiles in Wirtz and Isak and Ekitike. And I think Ekitike has done fairly well so far, but it's just a lot of changes in these positions. You've also got new fullbacks. As much as Trent is a liability defensively, he's one of the best passers, especially from right back, that you'll see. So you're missing a key playmaker, the creativity, someone to unlock that, the opposition defense. And you're also missing a great source of crosses from set pieces and open play, and someone who linked up with Salah so well over the years. And Frimpong is a wing-back by trade. He's not a right-back, so it's just completely different now. And there's a lot of moving pieces. Kanate's having a stinker. McAllister's playing really poorly. Szoboszlai's been one of Liverpool's best players, and Gravenberch, as good as he's been this season, was quite off it today, but you can give him a pass, to be fair. I just think there's a lot of different reasons why Liverpool aren't clicking at the moment. But look, despite everything we just said, 3 losses in a row, they're still not in a terrible position in the Champions League table. They got a win already on board against Atletico, which is always a difficult fixture, and they're still 2nd in the Premier League. So it's not the end of the world. DM McDonald says 42 points for me with Gay, Burn, Pope, and Mateta still to play. Yeah, that's decent. Yeah, if Haaland blanks tomorrow, you're looking okay, I think. That's pretty much your big kind of swing. If Haaland blanks and you have maybe 1 or 2 returns from that, it should be a green arrow, depending on your rank, of course. But yeah, that is going to be the game changer for you. Wei Seng says Joao Pedro has fatigue problems and he always plays better when Palmer is there. Yeah, I mean, a lot of these players, maybe even Gyökeres, for example, you could say they're being overplayed. They need more of a rest, but Joao Pedro did get one against, was it Lincoln in the Carabao Cup? And of course, the red cards didn't really help. He got one against Benfica as well. He's in bad form at the moment, but he will surely come good. I think Palmer is a very good point. That will be a massive benefit for Joao Pedro. How many games more would you keep Xavi? Is that? I mean, I want to say Xavi Simons is a must-sell, but I'd be quite tempted to sell him. So Semenyo and Saka are the standout midfielders. I think Saar would be an upgrade as well. Those 3 are probably my favourites in that position. Even Anthony Gordon would be solid and an upgrade, but yeah, like I said before, Gordon isn't like a priority for me. I think the other 3 are a level above. Thomas says, kind of lucky, yeah, but had a lot of fighting spirit, but in order to win them, which seems to have gone a bit in the last few. You're probably right. I mean, if you watch your team regularly, you can tell sometimes when the mentality is off or when there's a change in the tempo or desire and the intensity. So yeah, Liverpool have been a very high-pressing team and very, well, solid in all departments over the years with Klopp and Arne Slot. So when you see this sort of decline or maybe drop in performance, you're going to notice it instantly. So let's go through the other questions and comments. Drop a like on the stream, subscribe to the channel. I'll be going live for the next hour or so, and I've already been live for an hour. This will be the last piece of content for the next week. I will be taking a bit of a break, like I said, but then afterwards it'll be full throttle with UCL Fantasy and FPL content for the rest of the season. So it'll be a very rare rest for me. But yeah, like I said, once I recharge the batteries, it will be just video after video, and live stream after live stream. This week alone, I did 2 triple uploads on Monday for UCL Fantasy and also on Thursday for Fantasy Premier League. So let's go through the different questions here quite quickly. I have lost the chat a little bit. Yeah, Kudus is getting 3 bonus points here. Wildcard team. Yeah, looks decent, but I wouldn't go for Truffert over Senesi, for example, if you can help it. A lot depends on your budget, of course, but having 2 Formula defenders, I'd rather have a better player there than Rodon or Estev. In my opinion, Rodon is better than Estev, so something like Estev to Senesi, and then Truffert to probably Mark Gay. I mean, to be fair, you got Richards already. Maybe Diouf, actually. Truffert to Diouf, and Estev to Senesi. Kudus looked really good today. I wouldn't be buying him on the wild card personally. Maybe you're not a fixtures person, and to be fair, I don't always look at fixtures, but that was his first Premier League goal and his first goal for Tottenham this season. So I think there are better midfielders there. Mbumo's an underrated shout. He is facing Liverpool away, but he's been one of United's best players, especially offensively. Palmer, if he's fit, I just wouldn't really go there. You've also got Foster and Guiu up front. I think that's poor, in my opinion. Foster isn't terrible, but having Guiu as well, I think that lets it down big time. So, look, play FPL your way. You always got to back your gut, but I would personally do something like Palmer down to Sarr. I'd move Kudus and Mbumo to... I mean, you don't have Semenyo in there. Oh, you do. Okay, my mistake. Sarr was the one. Gordon's pretty decent as well in the midfield. But yeah, I definitely upgrade that forward line and try to go to one of Bowen, Joao Pedro, or Nick Voltemada. I captain Semenyo, really good, but bench Caicedo. It is what it is. You can't get it all spot on all the time anyway. You will have weeks where everything goes well, but yeah, you got to just embrace it when it comes. Yeah, so the wildcard draft will likely be the week after next, like I said. So after today, I'll be taking a break until the 13th of October, basically, or 14th of October. Then I'll be back at full throttle with content. And yeah, you'll get a lot of access, by the way, a lot of different perks if you are a member. So you'll get early access to my videos and also priority to comments. Whenever I make a transfer, you'll be the first ones to know as well. Harry says, free-hitted Gakpo and Borro out, but got rid of my Chelsea. Big investment in Newcastle and Villa. That'll be the game changer. Hopefully it goes well for you, Harry. I was never a big fan of the Gameweek 7 free hit, but everyone's situation is different, so you can still gain a lot of points from it. But yeah, obviously getting rid of Borro and Gakpo will hurt quite a bit. So yeah, how many more games would you give Xavi? If I had him, I'd probably sell. I don't think you have to, but there are definitely ways to improve that midfield with Ismail Assar, for example. I bought in Saka before this game week and it paid off. Yeah, it is ahead of the curve. Obviously, he blanked against Newcastle, but he played very well today. And also against Olympiacos, he scored the second goal as a sub. The penalty obviously was a massive swing, so whether it was Gyökeres or Saka taking it, ultimately that's what determined the so-called good pick. I think they're still both really good in the long term, but Saka deserved the return today. Gyökeres was quite poor overall. Jason Phillip puts his squad. Free transfers, bench boost in Gameweek 8, switch someone, 0.8 in the bank. Looks pretty good, actually. There aren't many players that I look at and think, ugh. Like Kudus could be a sell long term. Maybe Reinders to Caicedo. I've been saying this for a while now. If I was wildcarding, that's one of the first changes I would make. But I don't really see a need to make transfers now. Like, you're in a good position. I'm not a big fan of Donnarumma. I think Raya is the best goalkeeper. Then you've also got Nick Pope as well, who is right up there. But Donnarumma's fine. So, yeah, looking decent. I think that could be bench boosted. You've got Donnarumma facing Everton at home, Dubravka against Leeds. All of them have good fixtures except Van de Ven and Kudus, and they're still at home against Villa. In Dice facing City away, that's my only concern. Maybe you could sell him to Ismail Assar, who is facing Bournemouth, of course, but I think that's an upgrade long term. Mbumo away to Liverpool. I'm not sure if Mbumo's a sell, but he's not someone I'd want to start necessarily at Anfield. So those two are probably the weak links, in my opinion, but that could be bench boosted. I said to a lot of people, I think the Gameweek 8 or 9 bench boost looks the best. If I wildcard in 8, I'll likely bench boost in 9. And yeah, I wouldn't rule out a Gameweek 8 bench boost for me, but the most likely is that a wildcard, and that'll be discussed in future videos. Kevy says, I think I'm going to do Senesi and Mbumo to Gabriel and Enzo. Think that's okay? I know Senesi blanked in Gameweek 7. He was subbed off as well. And I think if he completed that game, he would have scored Defcon. I don't think Senesi's a sell. No. Bournemouth's fixtures aren't great, so I think the returns will naturally dry up a little bit. And they are conceding more goals. So Gabriel and Enzo, really good transfers in. I like them, especially Gabriel, but I don't think Senesi's a sell. That's my only concern. I mean, you do say at the end, I think Bournemouth concede in the next few, and I don't love Senesi. That's fair enough. I also agree that Bournemouth will concede more, and they have done already against Leeds and Fulham, but I still think with Defcon, Senesi could easily be worth 5 to 5.5 million. So he's a hold for me. Who's your favourite 5 to 6 million midfield on Wildcard? Caicedo. I've said this time after time again. He's not going to score every week, but if he can get 2 or 3 more goals until the end of the season, and then keep on scoring Defcon regularly, which he didn't do today, unless they retrospectively change it, yeah, I think Caicedo would be my favourite. Alan Madrid says 76 points. Haaland, Reinders, Burn, Anthony still to play. Yeah, great score. So no matter what happens, you're going to get a green arrow. That's very well played. And I think whenever you comment, you've got a really good score. So keep it going. Kevy says, I also own Caicedo, but think Caicedo Enzo double up isn't that bad. It isn't, because Enzo's there for the attacking threat, so to speak. Both of them got 11 defensive contributions today, so just one shy from the 12 needed for Defcon points. But yeah, I agree with that perspective, because Caicedo is there for the Defcon, and Enzo is more offensive, so that can work quite well, actually. And the fixtures are great, as you say. No, I'm not planning on keeping Bruno. So one set of transfers I discussed earlier was doing something like Fernandes to Saka and Ndai or Gakpo to Ismail Assar. Let's actually go to FPL.team again and play around with it slightly. So if I do make transfers quite early or wildcard, I'll be letting patrons and channel members know first. Like I said, a week off from content, which is quite rare for me. And then once I'm back, FPL and Use Your Fantasy videos on a regular basis, of course, like I usually do. And that's where I'll be talking about my transfer plans in detail. But yeah, I don't think I can keep Gakpo whilst getting Saka and Sarr. So in order to get Sarr and Saka for a -4, I'd have to sell Fernandes and Gakpo and then bench Ndai. I'm not a massive fan of selling Gakpo against United at home. And for those that have Salah, my advice is to keep him in that game, yeah. I don't think it's worth selling him. But let me know in the live chat, do you think it's worth wildcarding with this squad? I'll be talking about it in more detail fairly soon. Okay, so let's whiz through these. Should Salah be sold? No, not in Game Week 8. If I had Salah, I'd probably sell in Game Week 9, but not against United. Clement says, Gyökeres and Gakpo to Saka and Voltemada. I don't think it's worthwhile. I like Saka a lot, and Voltemada is definitely a decent differential up front, but it's not worth selling Gyökeres and Gakpo. I think Gakpo's a hold, like I talked about, going into Game Week 7 until Game Week 9. That's where I'd be selling my Liverpool attackers. Mustafa says, bench boost with Dubravka, Leeds at home, Reinders, Van der Ven, and Goodmanson. Yeah, looks good. I like that. With one free transfer, if you had to make an upgrade, it's probably Van der Ven, actually. That looks pretty solid. I'd bench boost with that. Mark says, I was looking to move Gakpo to someone like Minter or Enzo, but I may hang on to him. Yeah, exactly that. And I talked about this in my transfer tips a few days ago. I think he is worth keeping until Game Week 9. Then I'd feel differently. Gyökeres is definitely a keep for me. Mustafa says, sold Fernandes, Dewsbury Hall, and Xavi for Sarr, Gordon, and Foden. Yeah, really aggressive moves, but I do like the look of it. And obviously, if Fernandes doesn't get that extra Defcon by the end of the game week, then that looks pretty solid. No, Saka's not the permanent penalty taker. Odegaard can also take penalties when he's on the pitch, but I think his injury is quite serious again. And Gyökeres will definitely take penalties for Arsenal. Is he going to be the first choice of a Saka? Maybe not, but I don't think it will be clear-cut. Yeah, like I said before, I think with Arsenal's penalty, there is definitely a debate that the context started outside the box. But I also feel in, a few minutes beforehand, Mavropanos did a clear handball and it wasn't given. So these referees are just stupid, in my opinion. Or it's just part and parcel, they're human, whatever you want to say, but just bad decisions all around. Is Van Dijk still a hold? He's still a decent option. I don't think it's a priority sell. Against United, it's interesting. I think United could score, but I'm backing Liverpool to score 2 or 3 goals, actually. If possible, I would sell him to Gabriel. and I don't mind doubling up on the Arsenal defence, but it's all team dependent. But yeah, if you don't have an Arsenal option in that position, I'd sell Van Dijk to Gabriel. Timber's also good. He's second in my list of Arsenal defenders, but Gabriel is top. What do you think about a player like Anthony from Burnley? Yeah, when I was asked about the best 5-6 million midfielder, he's another one that should be considered for sure. I prefer Caicedo though, long term. I think Jadon Anthony's goals will dry up. He'll still get a few goal contributions. He's definitely the best Burnley asset, especially from the outfield positions. But yeah, I prefer Caicedo at the same price. Enzo, Grealish, Anthony, keep or sell? Enzo's definitely a keep. To be fair, they're all good options, but I think Grealish is the most sellable of the three. Enzo's the best of the lot. Sell or keep Gyökeres and Joao Pedro? Keep both of them. Curious to know why you have an Argentinian flag on your profile. Yeah, my family are from Argentina. I've actually got Argentinian nationality, but let's keep it on a downer. Bonus points are here, Dylan. Yeah, I'll go to that now. Just for those that want to see, these are my scoreline predictions for the game week. Only one correct so far in the Spurs game. They got a 2-1 victory. But yeah, Gabriel's got on the bonus point. That is pretty much it for me from today. Yeah, Bruno Fernandes just one defensive action shy of DEFCON, which is quite annoying. But yeah, those were my scoreline predictions. We'll see what happens tomorrow. We've got plenty of matches to look forward to. We are essentially halfway through Game Week 7, and this is a preview with our initial reactions going into Game Week 8. And yeah, there'll be plenty of content for FPL and UCL Fantasy over the coming weeks, so stay tuned for that. And let's now go to the FPL website. I did cover the bonus points earlier, and there is a super chat in the building. Let me just go through that. Thank you very much. I'll also go through the chat member questions first, and then read out the rest in order of submission. Ahmad, thank you very much again. I appreciate it. Would you start Alderete against Wolves next week? Sold Nico Williams last night to avoid the price drop and free up some funds. -4 looks likely to bring in Gabriel, but might delay the transfer to Game Week 9. Yeah, and Fulham is a bit of a bogey team for Arsenal in recent seasons. They haven't kept a clean sheet at Craven Cottage since 2023, and that was a 3-0 victory. And ever since that, it was a 2-1 defeat and a 1-1 draw. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. Alderete against Wolves at home. Sunderland were quite poor today, and United obviously deserve credit for that. But yeah, Wolves are still there for the taking. They have looked better, obviously, with this formation change. Maybe you can reassess this after they play tomorrow against Brighton. But if they still look shaky and maybe Wolves struggle to score goals, then you'd be quite tempted to start Alderete there, and that looks pretty solid. But as things stand, I'd say yes. If I'm making a prediction for Game Week 8 right now, though, I do think Wolves will score against Sunderland. But is it worth a transfer, for example, and to bring in Gabriel? Maybe not, because right now I think Fulham will score against Arsenal. So that'll be my kind of take on it. As things stand, let's see if anything changes over the coming weeks. So let's see what the members are saying as well. Pieter says, sounds like Gyökeres is moving like an expensive Weghorst. Yeah, I get it. It is early days for me. I think he'll come good. He had a good start, in my opinion, in the first 4 matches. And in recent games, bar today, where I think he was poor, I think he's doing quite a lot of underrated work. But obviously, Gyökeres was signed to score goals. And people criticise Havertz, and so do I sometimes, because he might do some good hold-up play and link-up, but you know the end product isn't there. Gyökeres missed a big chance today, and ultimately, you can say Havertz has better link-up play than Gyökeres, but yeah. So far, at least in recent matches, definitely there have been some concerns, but I'm still not too worried about Gyökeres. I think it'll come good. We get another red card tonight, Sue. Yeah, Enzo Maresca. Very nice. Is Bowen as a striker really a good pick? Yeah, but Fulkrug has done nothing this season. Bowen is getting, maximum bonus points every time he scores. His consistency is so impressive, whether it's for Graham Potter, Nuno Espirito Santo, or any manager like Lopetegui. Bowen is always there producing the goods. I think Bowen is one of the best forwards in FPL. If he was a midfielder, he'd 100% be in my team, especially at 8 million, now 7.7. Yeah, I think the forward reclassification makes him a bit less appealing, but with those fixtures, West Ham are top of the FPL until Game Week 13. His consistency and the bonus points potential, I think Bowen is a great option. My only concern is that the underlying stats are quite poor. 0 big chances is not good enough, and today, West Ham had 0 shots on target. Agustin puts his team. ¿Usarías free hit o irías con este equipo? Dubravka, Diouf, Porro, Senesi, Saka, Mbumo, Semenyo, Kudus, Haaland, Voltemade y Joao Pedro. Está bueno el equipo. Si tienes el comodín, también es posible usarlo. No creo que es absolutamente necesario, pero sí, algunas opciones como Diouf y Saka son muy buenos a largo plazo. No me gusta mucho Mbeumo contra Liverpool de visitante. Senesi contra Crystal Palace tampoco es muy bueno. Kudos contra Aston Villa podría ser mejor. Voltomado contra Brighton. Sí, con el free hit quizás es mejor usarlo en la jornada 11. Y si tienes el comodín, también es posible usarlo en la jornada 8. Es algo muy posible para mi equipo también. So right now, Adam, we don't know if Palmer's going to play. I wouldn't be investing in Palmer until he's kind of clear from these problems because there's still talk of surgery. He's getting injections all the time to play through the pain. I'm not so sure about investing in Palmer right now. It's good to go early on players like Saka, as we saw this week, but with Palmer, it's a different situation. I probably would say no. Sa or Doku? Sa. I'm getting rid of Pedro Porro, Reinders, Joao Pedro after hitting Wildcard. Makes sense. I think there's a case to keep Joao Pedro on the wildcard, but with the others, I'd definitely sell. I'd go for Gyökeres over Isak on the wildcard right now. I just think Ekitike and Isak will still share minutes in the Champions League and Prem. Also, if I'm buying Bowen, I couldn't afford Gabriel or even Timber. Well, it depends, right? Maybe a downgrade elsewhere. Buying Caicedo in the midfield could also open that door to have Bowen and an Arsenal defender. But yeah, if it's between Bowen and, you know, getting an Arsenal option defensively, I would probably go for the Arsenal one. DM McDonald says, Dylan, you're going to think I'm crazy. Well, no, actually, I've been backing Salah all stream, despite a poor performance today. I do like him against United. It could be an underrated triple captaincy shout. I actually think you're making a good point here. After the break, based on how good his record against them is, worth it. Think he might be a sell afterwards. Yeah, I think Salah could be the best captain in Gameweek 8. Now, I still think if I had the triple captaincy, I'd use it in 13 or 15 on Haaland against Leeds or Sunderland. And I've always mentioned those game weeks as possibilities. And United have a good record in big games under Amrim. At least they don't get battered very often. Only City this season is the odd exception in terms of the scoreline. But yeah, it's a good shout. It's underrated. It's against the grain. When people are selling Salah, not only are you captaining him, you're triple captaining him. And I think it could pay off. But at the moment, I think Salah will get a goal. Maybe some bonus points. I don't think his ceiling will be that high, personally. Why is Frimpong not playing? Well, to be fair, he had that injury. He's not a right back by trade. I don't think Bradley's particularly great, and we've seen it this season. He makes a lot of fouls. Obviously, he got booked today as well. Liverpool have a clear issue in terms of their defence and midfield, but yeah, Frimpong is not a natural right back. There's a lot of moving pieces, a lot of things that are changing for them, the style of play, and ultimately Trent is a miss right now. Yeah, Salah captain is what I'd probably recommend at the moment. Haaland's a close second, though, and I might change my mind if I see Haaland scoring a brace or hat-trick against Brentford in the final game of Matchday 7, sorry. Thoughts on Kudus? Yeah, he was really impressive today. Obviously, the goal, I think Darlow should have done better, which might be a bit harsh to be fair, but yeah, he also got the assist. I think Kudus, for those that have him, is a hold, but Spurs have a poor fixture swing, which arguably starts now against Aston Villa. And we'll see how Villa get on tomorrow. If they get the victory, that's 4 consecutive wins for them. I think if I had Kudus, I'd keep him for the next week or two, but then I'd be quite open to selling. I think Sarr, Semenyo, Saka, Gordon, Caicedo, and a few others I've talked about in my recent Wildcard podcast would be upgrades, actually. Best 3 forwards, Haaland goes without saying. I'd put Jarrod Bowen's name in the mix. I still like Joao Pedro. Gyökeres is still in the conversation for me. So those 4... I think picking 3 of those 4 is probably what I'd go for. Voltemada and Mateta are just outside that group. So that's ultimately my top 6 forwards in FPL. I'll talk about this in my wildcard video next week, so stay tuned for that, and you'll see my thoughts there. Tomorrow might change things a little bit, but yeah, Haaland's definitely in it. I'd probably put Joao Pedro in there. And the third one, in isolation, I'm going to say Jarrod Bowen, to be fair. I think Gyökeres, you could argue, is in that category. But I did talk about, in my Gameweek 7 wildcard video, having Saka to cover the Arsenal attack and then having these kind of mid-price forwards, so to speak, alongside Erling Haaland. So that is very up in the air, to be honest. Gyökeres and Bowen are interchangeable. Should I sell Van Dijk to Gabriel? I'd say yes, but you've got Timber already, so it's not a priority, in my opinion. Ballard had 19 DEFCON after coming in the second half. So why is he benched? 19 defcon in 45 minutes only is insane. Well, United dominated the game. Sunderland were very defensive. It does make sense. I mean, look, it's still very impressive. That stat you read out there, I wasn't aware of it. But yeah, ultimately, I'm just saying, I'm not trying to be a dickhead, but the Sunderland managers are going to say, oh, Ballard, you got 19 defcon. Congratulations, son. You're in the lineup. I was talking about the possibility, whilst Reinildo Mandava is out, suspended, of Ballard coming in and things moving out a little bit. So Mukiele right back, Hume shifted to the left. But I did see a lot of Sunderland fans, when I was doing research with predicted lineups, saying that he likes to do like-for-like replacements. So instead of making all those changes and putting Mukiele right back and all this stuff, he'd just rather do a like-for-like change. So in this case, it's just bringing in Masuaku at left back for Reinildo and keep the rest stable and the same. So that's probably the main reason why Ballard isn't playing right now. Bro, reload the site. Yeah, I know this was done quite a while ago, but yeah, you can see it now. Ruler2 says 47, Isak, Saka, Timber heroes so far. Yeah, that's a good score. Sold Kudus, which sucks. Did he sell him this week? Yeah, let me know if he did, Ruler2, but ultimately with Kudus, I think long-term he is a sell. Obviously, the timing is a bit disappointing. So yeah, thank you to those that said that, but the bonus points are in. Would your 8th attacker on Wildcard be a midfielder or forward? It would be a midfielder, and even though you could argue it's too much squad depth, I'd say Caicedo, basically. And you can start him in most game weeks. There could be the odd one where you bench him, but there's always the risk of him getting a massive return. And he's adding more goals to his game this season, which is good to see. And if you need a bench boost soon, how cheap would you go? Yeah, so if I'm wildcarding in 8, I'll probably bench boost in 9. I think that'd be perfect then. Having someone like Caicedo, he can give you 4 or 5 points as a baseline score. He's got different avenues now to points with the goals. So that's probably what my answer would be. Yeah. How is Dewsbury Hall to... Is that Xhaka? And Gyökeres to Bowen and Foden to Saka and maybe Ndiaye to Sarr. That's a lot of changes. I'm not so sure about that. Dewsbury Hall is now available, but he's facing Man City away. I don't think I'd sell Dewsbury Hall to Xhaka. I think I'd already ruled that out. Gyökeres is still a hold for me. And even Foden against Everton at home. Is he a sell? I know Saka's an upgrade, and do I prefer Saka and Bowen over Foden and Gyökeres? Yes, I do. Ndiaye to Sarr, I'm quite open to. I like that transfer. So I would rule out Dewsbury Hall to Xhaka. That's not really too important. But the others, maybe. I just don't think Gyökeres and Foden are must-sells. They've got good fixtures, and they're still going to come good. Who should I transfer, Van der Ven or Vicario? I don't like making goalkeeper transfers. And it also depends who you can afford in each position. So that will determine the answer to your question, Martin, but... or Martin. You're not Spanish, it seems. Yeah. Long term, I'd rather keep Van der Ven, actually. So if you can do Vicario to Raya or Pope, I'd probably recommend that. But goalkeeper transfers isn't something I like to do, if possible. So thanks for the super chat, Ahmad. On 44 points, Pope, Munoz, and Ndiaye. Haaland captain left to play. Timber, Kudus, Semenyo, Hawes were lifesavers today. Yeah, they were really good returns, of course. All double digits. Really important to have that. And yes, Semenyo was absolutely brilliant yesterday. Maybe a slight regret I didn't captain him, in FPL Challenge at least, but yeah, good players left. It should be a green arrow. I think Pope has a good chance of a clean sheet. Munoz and Ndiaye, you're kind of hoping one of them returns. Maybe both is unlikely, but it's possible. And yeah, Haaland captain is always really impressive. Yeah, thank you, Adam. As he says, drop a like. We do have now almost 300 people watching. This will be the last piece of FPL content for the next week, like I said. But then afterwards, it's full throttle with UCL Fantasy and FPL for the rest of the season. Screw it, sign Tomiyasu and Dawson on the free. Tomiyasu is always injured, unfortunately. He's a quality defender. He would have stayed at Arsenal if it wasn't for the injuries. Grande Dylan, vender a Mo por Salah. Gracias, Ignacio. Para mí no. Me gusta mucho a Saka a largo plazo, pero Mohamed Salah tiene un tremendo récord contra Man United. Para mí es mejor venderlo en la jornada 9. Ahora, mantener a Salah y quizás sea el mejor capitán para la jornada 8. Hi, Dylan. Very disappointed by Gyökeres and Fernandes. I have free transfers. Fernandes is more of a sell than Gyökeres. I don't think you should sell the Swede necessarily. Reece Williams, get your boots, lad. Yeah, I remember him from a few years ago. Crikey, that's a flash to the past. Do you think Eze is an option? Yes, he missed a big chance today. He should have scored. But he played very well in recent games. especially against Newcastle in the first half. He is an option, but I'd probably prefer Gordon. And my favourite free midfielders right now are Saka, Semenyo, who for me is number 1, and Sarr. Those are the 3 I definitely have on the wildcard, then probably Caicedo as well. So once again, sell Salah for Saka. I just answered Ignacio's question as well in Spanish. I wouldn't sell Salah this week. I'd keep him, maybe even captain him against United, and then sell in Game Week 9. So yeah, Anthony, good player. Maybe a consideration as your 5th midfielder on the wildcard or as part of a free transfer, but I still prefer Caicedo. I have to say that again. Joao Pedro or Bowen up front. It's close. It's more likely at the moment that I'd have Bowen than Joao Pedro on the wildcard, but that can still change. They're both going to be quite similar, in my opinion. Bowen will score more goals, but Joao Pedro obviously has more assists for it. Bowen is a talisman. That's the thing he's got. Joao Pedro can also get a lot of bonus points like he did for Brighton last season, but yeah, you've also got Palmer once he comes back as well. With West Ham, it's basically Bowen or nothing most of the time. So really close. I like both of them. They're near the top of the FDR. West Ham obviously are first up until Game Week 13. It would be Bowen at the moment. On wildcard of Enzo Fernandez in the midfield, yeah, that would probably push me more towards Bowen as well to cover different attacks and not rely too much on Chelsea because sometimes they can disappoint you. The Sasa says, I played the wildcard in Game Week 4. Yeah, good squad overall. You've got Matoma who might miss out tomorrow. We'll see what happens there. He should be back after the international break. Sesko's in good form but facing Liverpool away, so I'm not a big fan of that. So you've got Dubravka, Gay, Munoz and Gakpo on the bench. I'd probably start one of them. To be honest, I'd start Gakpo over Sesko. Just saying that now. Possibly one of those Palace players, especially Munoz over Mitoma. That's something else I'd consider maybe, but yeah, it's a good squad. There are a few potential sells long-term like Pedro Porro. I'd say Mitoma and Reinders could be upgraded, so you got Sarr and Caicedo, for example. And Sesko is looking good, so I don't think he's a sell, but I'd rather go to Mateta, Nick Voltemada, and my 2 favourites would be Joao Pedro and Jarrod Bowen, actually, to partner Erling Haaland. Brad says free hit Game Week 8. Yeah, good squad on paper. For a lot of people, I'm more keen on wildcarding than free hitting, and then using that chip in Game Week 11, for example, but it's team dependent. The squad you've got there is pretty good, though. You've got Raya on the bench as well against Fulham, that's fair enough. So you've got triple Arsenal, but 2 of them are on the bench. Okay, fair enough. You could also just cheap out the bench, have one good option there if needed, but you don't need to have Roofs and Raya, especially if you're going to bench the more expensive goalkeeper, personally. I just bear that in mind when building a free hit. What do you think of doing Salah and Guy to Palmer and Isak in Game Week 9 if Palmer's back? Once again, with Palmer, it's a big risk because he has been playing through injections all season, and it is a massive risk. I know sometimes it's worth it in FPL, but I would have some concerns about that. The minutes could be managed. It's a reoccurring issue with his groin. Isak as well, the minutes with Ekitike is a big concern. We could easily see Isak benched in the Premier League against United and Ekitike starts, and then Isak will get the nod in the Champions League instead. So I'd probably say no. And also Salah, I have to keep saying this to people, do not sell him against United, in my opinion. Play FPL the way you want to. If you think he's going to blank, then fair enough, but I think Salah is one of the best captaincy options in Game Week 8. I think the best time to sell him would be in Game Week 9 now, for those that still have him. Does Gyökeres could be benched soon? Well, Arsenal do have, obviously, a lot of games recently. He started every single game, obviously, in the last week. 3 matches against Olympiacos, Newcastle, and West Ham. So I think that goes to show Arteta trusts him. He has done an underrated job with his all-round play. He was quite poor today, in my opinion, but he still did some good things for the team. It's possible. I wouldn't completely rule it out, but the same applies to Saka, by the way, who got rested against Olympiacos. He also got subbed off early against Newcastle, whilst Gyökeres played the full 90. So it can swing the other way, but yeah, Gyökeres should start against Fulham. Yeah, I think so. Mawson says, I was close to bench boosting with Dubravka, Anderson, Job, Pedro and Rodon. Yeah, that's what I mean. People did ask about similar benches to that, and I said no. There might have been some of Gakpo or Cucurella and things like that, and it ended up doing okay. But yeah, a bench like that, I said from the beginning, I probably wouldn't bench boost with that, even though Joao Pedro looked decent despite facing Liverpool. Yeah, unless Dubravka gets a really good return tomorrow. Query, with Odegaard out, is Eze's prospects looking good as a 10? Yeah, I don't think Odegaard will return anytime soon, which is a shame. He was looking so good against West Ham. Player of the match against Olympiacos. Changed the game against Newcastle. Yeah, it does increase Eze's chances of starting. It also means Merino has a better chance of starting as well, which I don't like, but it should be Zubamendi, Rice, and Eze now in the midfield three. Probably Trossard as the left winger. He keeps starting. I think Martinelli deserves a start based on his recent performances, and Trossard is better off the bench, to be quite honest with you, but the answer to your question is yes. Mustafa says best defender under 4.6. Probably Chris Richards. That's the one that springs to mind for me. Should I bench boost, says Ahad. It's a good squad. So you've got Vicario facing Villa, which I'm not a big fan of. You've also got Van der Ven. Ballard probably won't start against Wolves. Mbuma waits to Liverpool. There's a few things I don't like about this. Mainly those three players. The rest looks good. But double Spurs defense against Villa, not really keen myself. Ultimately, for a lot of people, Gameweek 8 or 9 is the best time to wildcard. Wildcard as well, but also bench boost. The sooner you get rid of this chip, the better. You've got 2 free transfers, so you can make some upgrades. I would sell one of Vicario Van der Ven. That would be my recommendation long term, especially if you're not wildcarding anytime soon. And yeah, I'd sell Ballard as well. That's probably the weak link. Even with a -4 hit, you could also sell Mbuma potentially, but it's not necessary. So you could definitely get to a good bench boost with 2 free transfers, but I've got 3 concerns there with that 50-man squad. So yeah, that's been covered. Let's whiz through these. I know this has been posted from a while ago. Once again, best defender on the 4.7. Yeah, it's going to be Mark Gay. Captain Salah this game week, no Haaland, Gabriel, Saka. That's why the wildcard is active. Yeah, a bit of a rage wildcard, you could say. I do like Salah against United, though, so you might regret selling him for Gameweek 8, just saying. But long-term, he is a sell. So it's a good long-term decision, but the timing might be a little bit off. Hi, Dylan, with Odegaard out for a while. Yeah, covered. Bench Mateta or Reinders. Probably Reinders at the moment. I try to be different than Captain Bruno. He was in my top 10 captaincy options, but he is just a big disappointment. You have to hope now that he gets the extra DEFCON to score the 2 additional points. That's a possibility by tomorrow. The same goes for Timber and all these players that narrowly missed out, like Caicedo and Enzo. So we'll wait and see. I haven't activated the wildcard yet, no, but it's a possibility. Django says 66 with 2, including Haaland captain left. Yeah, good score. Only 2 left. That's obviously a bit low, but you've got the points on board. That's the most important. Caicedo came clutch too. Being a Liverpool fan, I'll take this for tonight. Yeah, but I'll be honest, mate, I'd be fuming. Even if I had Caicedo and he scored against my team and, that could be costly in the title race, I wouldn't be too happy, but at least FPL-wise, you can have something to celebrate. I'll do a Gameweek 8 wildcard in over a week's time. We've still got the matches tomorrow, and I make dedicated wildcard videos every single week, so stay tuned for that next week. Sesko and Gyökeres are classic strikers, number 9. Yeah, more traditional number 9s. I get your point there. Ultimately, both of them have been a bit underwhelming so far. Gyökeres had a good start. He's kind of tailed off recently with the goals. Sesko had a really poor start, and now he's looking quite promising, especially in the last 2 matches. But yeah, it's still early days for both. We can't fully judge them yet. Hi, Dylan. Another awful game, but we move. Fernandes, Van der Ven to Gordon, Gabriel, or Gyökeres, Fernandes to Bowen Saka. Oh, I do like the Bowen Saka move, but I don't think Gyökeres is a must-sell personally. Yeah, good question. Really good question. At the moment, I'd say Bowen and Saka. And I still think Gyökeres is good, by the way. He could still score against Fulham and look quite promising after this international break. But I just like that Bowen-Saka duo. Thank you, Dasasa. Palmer could be back after the international break, but there's no guarantee he's available for Gameweek 8. George France says, transfer out Cunha for who next week? I have 9.9 million. Yeah, it would be Saka for me. Now, Semenyo is still number 1. If you haven't got him, I think he's the go-to midfielder. Saka and Sarr are 2 of my favourite midfielders to partner him. But yeah, Saka if you don't have him. Andrew Barnes says, bought in Evanescence to cover Semenyo, who I don't have. Worked amazingly well, then punted on Cunha, and he gets benched. Amazing game week. Yeah, and he went 007, which people love to say nowadays, right? Yeah, some really bad luck there. I thought Cunha would start. I thought Evanescence was also a good punt against Fulham. He had some chances, didn't take them, and Semenyo has been brilliant this season. Yeah, I think Foden will do well this week. If he starts, let's wait and see tomorrow if he gets the nod, but his record against Brentford is brilliant. With me mentioning it so many times, I probably jinxed him, but yeah, on paper, he's a good option against Brentford. Martin says, should I transfer out Vicario and take a chance on Dubravka or take out Van de Ven and get Gabriel? Probably in this situation, take out Van de Ven and get Gabriel. I just think long-term, you're getting the best defender in Fantasy Premier League right now. What do you think about selling Haaland in Gameweek 9 and wildcarding in 13? That's a different strategy which could work fairly well, but what are you going to do with that money? Are you going to have Saka and Palmer simultaneously? Are you going to go for Salah? I'm not quite sure about that because, to be honest with Salah, the best time to have him is Gameweek 8 against United. After that, he's sellable. Yeah, bench Caicedo, you're not the only one. Hey Dylan, can you give an early wildcard draft to gain price advantages? I can do something briefly, but if you want like a dedicated wildcard video, you'll get that in over a week's time with more information, and that'll be even better than what I produced at the moment, which is still up in the air. Thank you to all for the super chat. I appreciate it. If you've got a message or comment, let me know. I will be wrapping up fairly soon. So this will be, like I said, the last piece of content for now. And then next week, I'll be back with FPL and UCO Fantasy videos. Activate wildcard. Who are 100% locked? My team is horrific. Watkins, Van Dijk, Sanchez, Salah captain, blank. Like I said, though, before for Remy, you know, Salah has been poor recently, but against United, I'd back him to do well. He's not going to blank every week. You know, it's Salah we're talking about. He missed some big chances today. Also a great opportunity against Palace. I think the goals will come against Man United. Hey, Dylan, yeah, covered. If I want to sell Bruno Fernandes and Gyökeres, for who? Saka and Bowen would be up there for me. You don't need to sell Gyökeres, though. Don't panic because of... I know he's technically blanked in 3 successive games now, but he's not a must-sell. Gyökeres is still in the top 4 forwards, maybe even top 3 in the game for the next 5-6 game weeks. I have Semenyo, Caicedo, Dewsbury Hall, Paqueta, Mateta, Haaland. Yeah, I'd probably say Saka and Bowen. Gordon, Ismaila Sarr, or Bruno Reinders? Gordon and Sarr. Okay, so people are asking a lot about a wild card. I get it. I might even pull the trigger, I mean, tonight if I can. I can't really promise you that. So let's go to a provisional wildcard squad. Once again, it's subject to change. Yeah. Definitely tune in for next week where you'll have a more detailed analysis and you'll have an even better squad built here. So let's have this set up. Obviously, Gabriel's yellow flag will be removed. I'd keep Dubravka on the wild card. Long term, I think Raya's the best goalkeeper. Nick Pope could also be considered. And I would start Raya over Dubravka potentially. I don't even mind, though, for those who maybe want to diversify the defense and start Dubravka. That's fine. We can talk about that next week. But I'll sell Borro. I'm going to put Mark Gay in here. I still like Senesi, but obviously some people in the chat are going off him. He did only blank once. Let's also put it into perspective, but the fixtures are quite poor over the next couple for Bournemouth. It's not particularly great. Yeah, Reinders to Caicedo. I've been talking about this for weeks now. In Die, still decent. You don't have to sell him, but probably to Sarr. Bye-bye, Bruno Fernandes. See you later. Bukayo Saka would come in. Reinildo to Alderete, or any 4 million defender. Obviously, the Paraguayan is 4.1, but yeah, if you need the money, then we could make a change here. Okay, so I'd keep Haaland and Joao Pedro, I believe, and I'd probably go for Bowen with this setup. We've got a triple up in Arsenal already. Also, I'd get rid of Lacroix, and we've got not much money to work with, but I would use Gakpo as a downgrade to make this move possible. So these are like the final details of this very rough wildcard team. So let's do something like this for now. It's very rough, like I said. Still room for improvement. Let's put Minter for Gakpo. And to be fair, it might be worth keeping a Liverpool attacker against United. So that could also backfire. And then for Lacroix, because I don't want to double up on Palace defensively, as good as they are. With 5.2 million with my budget, I'd probably go for a Newcastle defender like Kieran Trippier. So very similar to what I discussed in my best wildcard team a few days ago. Not much has changed. But we also have the international break happening. Injuries could happen. We could have yellow flags and doubts and a few concerns going into the Gameweek 8 deadline. But I'd go for something like this. In terms of the starting 11, probably something similar. I know you've got a clash between Senesi and Ismaila Sarr, but both of them can halt in the same game. Senesi with Defcon, and then Sarr with a goal. You've got Bowen against Brentford at home, Joao Pedro and Caicedo facing Forest. You could also bench Caicedo if you wish for one of Minter or Kieran Trippier. I'd probably rank it this way, and that's a pretty good bench as well. You could feasibly bench boost with this, but of course you can't play 2 chips at the same time. Then in Gameweek 9, for example, you could actually bench boost with this as well. You've got Dubravka home to away to Wolves. This is where, for those that are wildcarding in 8 and want to bench boost in 9, instead of Alderete, you might consider a Burnley or Leeds player. So that's why I've seen a few Esteves and Rodons flying around. So if you are bench boosting in 9, maybe consider a Leeds defender. So in this case, Rodon. So it's Burnley away in Gameweek 8, and in Gameweek 9, it's West Ham at home, which isn't terrible, but obviously you've got Bowen in this team as well. But there's a few things to consider here, and obviously that could also change. Like I said, there are a few details to iron out. It's not perfect, but it's a decent wildcard foundation. The kind of main picks I'd be highlighting is Raya, or at least one Arsenal defender. I think doubling up is really solid long-term. Gabriel is my favourite defender in FPL right now, but Senesi is still up there. A Palace defender also looks viable. Afterwards, it just comes down to your preferred 4 million defender of choice. I still think Alderete or Mukiele are quite good, but if you want a bench boost in 9, that fixture against Chelsea isn't great. I'd also recommend a Newcastle player or two. So Voltemade up front, Gordon in the midfield, Trippier defensively, or Pope in goal. Maybe 1 or 2 is the sweet spot for Newcastle. Erling Haaland is definitely in this wildcard team. I think one of Joao Pedro, Enzo Fernandez, and my favourite Defcon machine is Caicedo right now for sure. Semenyo is the best midfielder in the game. I like Sarr and Saka as differential midfielders. They won't be differentials for long, of course, but I talked about this going into the Gameweek 7 deadline. And Minter remains a differential, so not too shabby. 0.3 in the bank, still room to improve. And stay tuned for that wildcard squad next week. Let's whiz through the other questions and then call it a day. I did give 10 memberships, by the way, in yesterday's deadline stream, and a big shout out to Paredes and also to Ahmed for gifting memberships in the process too. Hey Dylan, would you do Bruno to Saka or Bruno plus Ivanosen to Gyökeres and Sarr? Yeah, both are really solid plans, but I would probably just do Bruno to Saka. LFC fan says, I've got Raya, Dubravka, Munoz, Borro, Gabriel, Esteve, Mukiele, Salah, Semenyo, Anderson, Reinders, Ismaila, Sarr, Watkins, Joao Pedro and Gyökeres. Should I bench boost? It's a pretty good team, to be fair. I'd consider bench boosting that, yeah. You could still make 1 or 2 tweaks, like Anderson out. Maybe Watkins as well. So like Watkins to Bowen, and then Anderson to... Yeah, you've got a really good midfield, but maybe Anderson to Minter, Caicedo. That's what I'd consider, but really good. Van der Ven or Tarkowski to Gabriel. I'd rather sell Van der Ven. Bench 1 of Gabriel, Cucurella, Lacroix, Senesi for Gameweek 8. We'll see how this ages, and definitely tune in for the deadline stream and ask this question then. But right now, I'm going to say bench Lacroix. Bench Lacroix from those 4. Quite close. Gabriel's a definite starter at the moment. Thank you, Pratik, and greetings to you as well. I wouldn't buy Palm on the wild card. Like I mentioned a few times in the stream, he's getting injections. You know, he's missing the last couple of games. There's no guarantee he's back for Gameweek 8 anyway. And at a similar price, I think Saka's the standout. I think Palmer is probably an avoid until we see him play consistently without pain. And yeah, it's obviously a bit of a shame, of course. But yeah, I think Cole Palmer isn't really worth it at the moment. Maybe things change. There could be a positive update throughout the international break and he's all clear. The injury's behind him. And then from that point, I'd be like, yeah, that looks pretty good. Chelsea have great fixtures. It could be like Saka going into Gameweek 6 and 7. You can be ahead of the curve that way, but as things stand, I'd say no. Pratik says, do you think bench boost with Kelleher, Anderson, Diouf, Thiago is fine? Yeah, I think so. Not a massive fan of Anderson, but he can get Defcon, and the rest looks quite good as well. Sam says, heading to Gameweek 8 with Raya, Dubravka, Pedro Borro, Cucurella, Munoz, Senesi, Goodmanson, Semenyo, Kudus, Reinders, Gakpo, Elliott, Gyökeres, Haaland, and Pedro with 1.6 in the bank. Yeah, I think bench boost in 8 or 9 is viable. I definitely recommend for those that are kind of deliberating between those 2 gameweeks for the bench boost, use the website fpl.team and see how the bench would look like and the fixtures and which you prefer. That is the best advice I can give you. With the setup you've got, I'd probably go for the bench boost in Gameweek 8, but things can change very quickly. Brognan says, Dylan, I am a cyberpunk vandal from the future. I was thinking of the game, Cyberpunk 2077, when you said that. I came here to tell you that Haaland gets a bad injury before Christmas and Kudus becomes a must-own. Yeah, I'm not so sure about that, mate. Hopefully it doesn't happen. Yeah, I don't want any of those situations to happen, to be fair. Jack says, enjoying this Liverpool downfall. I mean, it's 3 consecutive losses, but they're still second in the Prem. Like, there have been worrying signs for a while now. You know, the performances were going to catch up with them eventually, but it's not a crisis. It's just a really bad moment. And Liverpool have aspirations to win big trophies this season, but it's far from over. Best striker to bench boost with, Jarrod Bowen would be up there. I like that fixture against Brentford. Why Sarr? He's fixture-proof, mate. Against Villa and Liverpool, 2 of the best teams in the league. He has a great record against them. I think Palace are also worth covering offensively. And you're not going to find those underlying stats or consistency from many players at that price and below. That's why I like him. Start Pope or Dubravka in Game Week 8. Dubravka. Richard says, hey Dylan, wildcard active. Currently on this. Pope, Dubravka, Gay, Truffert, Alderete, Rodon, Estev, Salah, Saka, Semenyo, Sarr, Xhaka, Haaland, Voltemada, Guiu. Yeah, I like Salah for Game Week 8, but long term I still think he's worth selling. And by downgrading him, you can upgrade other positions. Personally, I think Senesi's better than Truffert, and your defensive line is quite worrying. You've got no Arsenal coverage defensively, and you've got 3 4-man defenders, which looks good for Game Week 8 and 9 on paper, but you've also got 2 of them facing each other in Burnley and Leeds. So I'm not sure how to feel about that defensive line. I think that could be improved on quite significantly. It does mean you can go for Salah and Haaland and Saka simultaneously. I think short-term that looks quite promising, but long-term you're going to have a few issues. So I'd probably revisit some of those choices. And that's why for some people who have Salah, it might be worth keeping him for 1 more week and then wildcarding in 9. Thank you, LFC fan. Cheers, mate. Good luck for tomorrow. Likewise to you. And thank you to Pratik as well. Mario says Fernandes to Enzo or Gordon. It's a close one, and I do like Gordon, who's on penalties for Newcastle, but I think Enzo Fernandes. Native Faith says, is Michael Keane an option at 4.5 with Branthwaite injured? The thing is, Branthwaite will come back eventually. We don't know when that's going to be. But Keane has been very impressive recently. He also scored against West Ham. And does he continue to start? Well, when Branthwaite is ready to start, Keane will drop to the bench. We've seen that happen multiple times over the last year. Bada says, left Borro on the bench with Van der Ven in. Timber 1 away from Defcon. Hopefully he'll be modified and he gets 10. Yeah, and either way, it's a massive return from Timber. He won the penalty, which was a bit dubious. He got the clean sheet and also 2 bonus points, but you always want more. You know, I want those Defcon points for Bruno Fernandes. So, yeah, if Bruno Fernandes gets them, you can get them with Duran Timber as well. Hey, Dylan, give me a shout out. I'm top of your FPL Challenge League. 2 slips and a bully. Nice name. And, yeah, fair play. I haven't checked the FPL Challenge League recently. So, yeah, that's really impressive. FPL Challenges definitely a lot of fun to play. I always cover it in my FPL deadline streams. Not a great week for me so far. I mean, to be fair, 2 players have featured, 2 good returns in Semenyo, and I actually forgot the other player already. That's amazing work from me. Yeah, Gabriel. So if we refresh this now, yeah, you can see 31 points. Gabriel with 13. Obviously, it's double points this week for clean sheets. Those goalkeepers, defenders, and midfielders will score double the points for those. For that metric. So a good start, to be fair, but a lot of players left on Sunday. Thank you, Secondary. I appreciate the kind words. Thank you for your job, man. You're really incredible. I mean, that's very flattering. Not necessarily true, but thank you very much. What do you think of Doku? He has been impressive recently. I still prefer the likes of Sarr. I think he'll be more consistent over the course of the season. I think Ndai is still quite a solid pick. I definitely can see the advantage of going for Doku over Ndai at the moment. But then there's also Semenyo, Saka, who I'd prioritize, Moises Caicedo. You just saw right now my kind of best wildcard squad. And with City, I think it's quite difficult to predict the best midfielder. I still think Foden might be it, but he is also priced at 8.1 million. Reinders is also an okay option, but very difficult to anticipate when he's going to return. So yeah, Doku's a decent option. He's improving on his consistency and the output, but he's still not scoring enough goals for me. Ashwin says roll to 4 free transfers. And then is that when to bench boost or? Yeah, I think Game Week 8 or 9 for the bench boost looks really enticing. So for those that still have that chip, myself included, that is the play. Right now, the most likely scenario is that I'll wildcard in 8 and bench boost in 9. If I don't wildcard in 8, then I might even consider a bench boost in 8 right now. But yeah, I think that's less likely. So good squad overall. You're looking at these transfers. So you've got Anthony, Hannon, Foster, Richarlison, or Ndiaye, Gvardiol, Richarlison to Enzo, Richards and Bowen. Yeah, I'd make those 3 transfers. I think Ndiaye and Gvardiol are still good. And Richarlison could still start, of course, in Game Week 8 against Villa. But yeah, he's a sell long term. And you're bringing in some good players. I think Richards is the best 4-point fouling defender or under. I think Enzo is a solid midfield option. And Bowen is right up there amongst the best forwards. Well, João Pedro had a good start to the season from an FPL perspective. He's still got 2 goals and 3 assists, but the underlying stats are quite poor. Gyökeres also had a solid start with 3 goals in 4 games. Then he blanked, of course, in the following 3 matches, which is, yeah, not good enough. I still think they're both holds, though. I would not be in a rush to sell them. If I had to pick between those 2, it would be João Pedro, and I'd cover Arsenal offensively with Saka in the midfield. Ndiaye to Sarr or Caicedo. Sarr has the higher ceiling. He's also the more exciting pick, so to speak, but Caicedo is so consistent. I'm going to say probably Ismaila Sarr for me. On the wildcard, I'd probably have both though, Nathan. Ahmed says last 2 Palace Bournemouth games ended 0-0. Yeah, I wouldn't rule that out. I always look at these previous results when doing my scoreline predictions and sometimes to determine my captaincy options and transfers, but yeah. I think a draw is definitely reasonable for Palace, and I think they might even lose against Everton tomorrow. We'll see how that goes. Sell Ndiaye or Kudus for Sarr? Well, this week, I'd rather keep Kudus, but longer term, I still think Ndiaye might be slightly better than Kudus, so the timing is also a bit awkward. I don't think you need to buy Sarr this week for what it's worth against Bournemouth, so maybe keep Ndiaye and Kudus for now, start Kudus, and then reassess going into game week 9 or 10. But long term, I think Sarr's the best of the 3, so I know why you're looking for that sort of transfer. But yeah, don't worry, Ahmed, I did understand what you said. Vincent says, I have 3 free transfers, but some problems to solve. Bruno, Foden, Richarlison, Romero. Who are the priorities to get if I make transfers this week? Thanks, Dylan. Always enjoy your content. Thank you, Vincent. Free transfers is a great position to be in during an international break. I mean, they're all good FPL assets or decent. Richarlison being benched today is a big concern. Poor fixtures. I think he might be the priority to sell. And you've also got a lot of options up front, like Voltemada, João Pedro, Gyökeres, Erling Haaland, obviously goes without saying. And I'd probably go to Jared Bowen in your situation. So I think Richarlison's the priority. Foden against Everton. I mean, if he's benched tomorrow, you might feel differently, but I think he's a hold. So probably Richarlison and Bruno are the priorities to sell. And I would try to get rid of Romero, especially by Game Week 10 when they face Chelsea. Would you go Richarlison to Voltemada, Bowen, or Reinders to Sarr? Bowen. Richarlison to Bowen is my favourite this week. Yeah, Declan Rice is injured. So is Martin Odegaard. Yeah, both injuries don't look good. I'm not particularly pleased about that. There's always an if or a but with Arsenal, unfortunately, but yeah, I'm a bit concerned. The good thing, if there is one, is the fact that it's an international break now, so they can get a rest. But yeah, I'm quite concerned. Dylan, Game Week 8 bench boost? Yes, for a lot of people, but it depends on your situation, right? I don't know your squad, so maybe Game Week 9 looks better for you. But yeah, my current plan is to wildcard in 8 and bench boost in 9. For some people, the Game Week 8 bench boost looks really good. Things getting spicy with Liverpool's downfall. Slot got a lot of work to do to cement a great lineup and playstyle. Yes, but obviously if this continues, then it's not going to be too entertaining in terms of the title race. Not that I'll care. I still think City are in it, by the way, for what it's worth, but they have some catching up to do as well. And Liverpool are still second, despite losing 3 games in a row across all competitions. Second Air says, what do you think of my Munoz pick? Yeah, I still like him a lot, but he has been a bit underwhelming in comparison to Gay, and I think all the Palace defenders have been quite close, but Gay has been the standout. I have a lot of doubts. I actually have Gabriel, Van de Ven, Senesi. Sorry, I keep getting them confused because it's VDV or VVD. So yeah, good defensive line still. And Goodmanson has a good fixture this week. Senesi, Defcon Monster. Only one exception in Game Week 7, of course. And Gabriel's the best defender long term. I think your defense is fine. El Hassan says, I resisted against the temptation of doing Salah to Saka and King to Gordon this week because of Chelsea and United defensive issues. Yeah, I still think Salah's worth keeping against United. Then you sell in Game Week 9. I think that's the way to play it. Yeah, Salah in Game Week 10 looks more appealing from a fixtures perspective, but he's also fixture-proof, so he can still score against Bournemouth and in the tougher games, but he's not a priority to buy in Game Week 8. Pratik says, please, Dylan, please suggest me if I need a wild card. Yeah, goalkeepers aren't great, but Dubravka against Leeds is fine. Yeah, defensively it's not terrible this week, but long term you'd probably get rid of 3 or 4 of them. I think Diouf and Senesi might be worth keeping on the wild card. I'd probably wildcard in 9, Pratik, and the key reason why is because you've got Salah. And captaining him in Game Week 8 could be a nice differential. I know that his form and stats aren't great, but in recent matches, he's getting more big chances and he just needs to deliver. And I think United is just a great fixture for him. We've seen his record over the years. So probably wildcard in 9 for you, Pratik. El Hassan says, thanks for advising me about selling Caicedo. I can't believe I actually sold the general. I advise you to sell Caicedo. I do not remember saying that. You got to give me the context, who you sold him to. If it's something like Caicedo to Saka, then I probably would say yeah. But if you saw my wildcard videos, Caicedo's in pretty much all of them. So it would be quite rare for me to sell Caicedo, to be quite honest with you. Larry K says, my midfield is Semenyo, Gravenberch, and Boomer, Bruno Reinders. Who's the best to swap for Game Week 8 and for who? Well, Semenyo's a must hold for me. He's the best midfielder in FPL right now. You've got Bruno and Mbeumo against Liverpool away. I don't like that at all. I think Bruno to Saka would be quite appealing for me. So he's the first one I'd sell. But ultimately, yeah, I think Semenyo's the best from what you've got. I think Reinders isn't a priority because of his price tag. You could argue Gravenberch is better than Reinders. I think it's quite close at the moment, but I do prefer Reinders a little bit more. But yeah, I'd definitely sell one of those United attackers first. Salah looking so rusty and out of confidence. Saka on pens now. Yeah, but like I said before, Gyökeres could still take the next penalty. And there was a bit of context around Saka's pen today. His 200th game for Arsenal, 100th goal contribution as well. Yeah, it was in the deadline stream yesterday. I believe it was Paredes who gifted it, but there was also Ahmed who gifted 5 memberships as well, and I gifted 10 throughout the stream, so I think it was one of those two. Paredes is my guess anyway. Are you watching the Under-20 ongoing World Cup? I'm not, to be honest. No. I was talking about your team. You've got a good bench, says Ahmed. Oh, fair enough. Thinking about Salah to Palmer. Thoughts? Once again with Palmer, until we see him stay fit, I can't recommend buying him because he had injections all season to play these matches, and we've seen the minutes recently, of course, and missing multiple games. And selling Salah, I think he's one of the best midfielders on a wild card. Fixture proof, long term, great value. So I don't think you should sell Salah. And Palmer is a big risk. So until we get that sort of confirmation that Palmer can play for a prolonged period of time without any problems, I'd stay clear for now. Which 3 of Gordon, Saka, Semenyo, and Sarr would you have on the wild card? They're all good, but it would be Gordon out, basically. So I'd go for Saka and Semenyo for sure. Then it's quite close, you could argue, but I'd pick Sarr over Gordon. Annie the Goat says, is there any other alternative to wildcard in 8 and bench boost in 9? Yes. For those of Salah, for example, you can wildcard in 9. And I did talk about wildcard 13 as another solid strategy, but in my situation, it's more likely I'll wildcard in 8. That's just the way my team is set up as well. You're saying you're happy with your team heading into the break. I have 3 here in my pocket too. I think Game Week 11 looks quite appealing for the free hit, but everyone's situation is different. Leo says, hey Dylan, how's it going? What do you think about the top captaincy picks for Game Week 8? Well, I will go into this in a couple of weeks' time. I'll be making the graphics and breaking this down in more detail, but I think Salah might be the best captaincy option, even though his recent form would suggest otherwise. So at the moment, it would be Salah first, Haaland second, and I still think Semenyo is up there, but this will be addressed in a couple of weeks' time. Evening JM, I will be wrapping up very soon though. So pretty much the last messages I see here will be covered and that's it. Okay, fair enough, El Hassan. I mean, you advise against selling him. As a Chelsea fan, he is my favourite player. Was just thinking of selling him in FPL, but didn't. Okay, fair enough. I misunderstood. It's just I found it surprising if I said to sell Caicedo. In some situations, I did say bench him, and obviously that turned out to be the wrong thing. But I'll be honest, I didn't think he'd score. I thought he'd get DEFCON against Liverpool and give 4 points. Shows what I know. Ahmed says 570k to 750. Only Foden, Reinders, Haaland, Captain Gay can save me now. Still a great position to be in terms of the rank at this stage of the season. Good players left. Not too shabby. Is Reinders a dubious pick if there are better cheap midfielder options that are more attacking and can get DEFCON? I don't think Caicedo's more attacking than Reinders. He's getting more goals. That doesn't mean he's more attacking. But Caicedo is the better option because of DEFCON. So, yeah, on the wildcard, I'd definitely pick Caicedo. I've been saying that for a few weeks now in my wildcard videos, but he's not more attacking than Reinders, in my opinion. Wonder what surprises the international break will bring. That's the thing about surprises. You don't know what they're going to be. So let's wait and see. Whatever surprises there are, they'll be covered in my future videos. Thank you, Pratik, as well. And thank you, Kevy. Good luck to you as well. The same goes to everyone watching. Mario says Fernandes to Gordon, Sarr, or Enzo for the next 2 weeks. Yeah, interesting question. Not much to separate them for the next two. I'd probably say Enzo, actually. But it also depends on Palmer. If he's back, does it push Enzo further back? And even today, for example, we saw Chelsea play with Gusto and James. So it's not always going to be the same system for Chelsea. And Enzo can play as the attacker midfielder or sitting deeper with Caicedo. But he can still get returns either way. From a fixtures perspective, it would be Enzo. 45 points of Donnarumma, Reinders, and Robot Captain left. Yeah, good score for now. Decent players left. Only 3, but yeah, Haaland Captain could be enough. Thank you, Gary, and good luck to you for the rest of the season. Combs says Sarr, Enzo, Gordon for me in that order. Yeah, long term, I agree. I actually agree with that order completely. It's just for the next two, I'd probably say Enzo, actually. Any big price rises, mate? I only went for it once. I think Semenyo is the main one. He keeps going up in price. Jurriën Timber and Sarr. If you are planning to wildcard in 8, my advice is to pull the trigger now and try to gain some, team value that way. But that's only if you're convinced about wildcarding in 8. It's very likely that I will do it, but I'm not fully sold on it, not like 100%. In terms of price falls, there aren't many. Not significant ones anyway. Jorginho Rota keeps on, getting these projections to go down. I never see it. But obviously he has gone down a few times earlier this season. But yeah, in terms of price rises, is Semenyo, Timber, and Sarr at the moment, according to the website livefpl.net. I'll drop a link in the live chat. Be sure to drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and also hit the notification bell so you're always up to date on my content for UCL Fantasy and FPL for the rest of the season. Bada puts his team, wildcard in 8 or go an extra mile or 2 of this team. It's a good squad, to be fair. Like, there are a few concerning picks like Sells. I think Konsa's going to be a sell from now on. And even Bedrepor and Van der Ven, that's my problem there. So whilst you don't need to wildcard, I'd be tempted to pull the trigger. Then you can bring in Saka, you can change your forward line a little bit, maybe go differential with Bowen or Voltemada. I also like Mateta for what it's worth, but Sarr is the preference in the midfield to cover that Palace attack. And defensively, I think you can make some big changes and also to bolster your goalkeeper. So I'd probably wildcard now, actually. Dylan, go back to your Game Week 7 team. What I showed you earlier was the wildcard squad for Game Week 8. It's not my team, but this is how I did in Game Week 7. There's not really much more to talk about there. Pedro Porro got DEFCON. He also got the assist. Gabriel got DEFCON and a bonus point. Semenyo with a massive return yesterday, and he has been incredible this season. Joao Pedro blanked, and Bruno Fernandes was 1 defensive contribution shy from scoring DEFCON points. I benched Gakpo and Robert Sanchez. I've got Konsa at home to Burnley, Dubravka away to Aston Villa, Reinders and Haaland, who is my captain, facing Brentford away, Ndai facing Crystal Palace at home, and Voltemada, my new signing, facing Nottingham Forest at home as a 1-week punt. I also like him long term, but Bowen, Gyökeres, Joao Pedro and Haaland would be the preference. The same goes for Mateta, arguably, but I've already got plans to get Sarr in the midfield, as well as Saka, so that'll be a priority instead. So that's my situation. I'll talk about how I did in my team selection podcast in over a week's time. I've also got a wildcard squad headed your way, where I'll be covering injury updates, top 10 captains, clean sheet odds throughout all of my content. There'll also be a transfer tips in over a week, and more UCL fantasy videos for matchday 3. I played the wildcard and got 120 points in UCL Fantasy and a massive green arrow as well. Thank you, JM. Mark says, can you remind us who will play for Villa tomorrow if Martinez is out? Marco Bizot. Yeah, that's a nice segue there. Thank you for that. It will get boring eventually, right? Maybe not. Plus Mateta left, actually, who I hope does well. Yeah, that's good. I'd be quite confident there. So some people might have 6, 7, 8 left, but you've got good players remaining, which is a good thing. JM says Bruno to Saka and Gyökeres to Mateta or Voltemada. Happy with the rest of the team. I had a template wildcard pretty much last week. So for what it's worth, I like Mateta, but I don't think Gyökeres is a sell, and he could still take the next penalty. So there is this debate now with Salah, for example. Oh, I have to sell him now against United. I think he's a hold. And with Gyökeres, he is still a good option for the next 5. If you just bought him in, I'd hold him. But I do understand the temptation to go for Saka to cover Arsenal offensively, which I talked about in my wildcard video. And whilst I was quite conflicted about it, my preference was to go for Saka, Raya and Gabriel as the Arsenal coverage, and then go for the likes of Bowen, Voltemada, Joao Pedro and Haaland up front. Obviously only 3 of them, and I do like Jared Bowen from Gameweek 8 onwards. But yeah, Bruno to Saka looks good. If you can keep Gyökeres, then my recommendation is to do so. But yeah, Bruno to Saka is definitely a transfer I would recommend. Thank you, Ahmed, and to everybody else watching. You know the drill by now. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, also click the notification bell so you're always up to date on my content for UCL Fantasy and FPL for the entire season. And also share this stream. The same goes for all of my content. And click the hype button on the YouTube app. Let's see what the hype is all about. Follow me on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky. You can find me by typing DylanRCM or FPL Dylan. There's my Patreon, which is patreon.com/FPL Dylan. There's also the join button on YouTube to get early access to my videos, prior to comments, amongst many other perks. My Discord server, the FPL and FPL Challenge Leagues, and Spotify can also be found in the description. And leave a 5-star review on Spotify. It really goes a long way to boosting the channel. I'll see you in over a week. I hope you enjoy the international break and also the rest of my content for FPL and UCL Fantasy. All the best of luck for the rest of Gameweek 7, and there'll be plenty of content for Gameweek 8 in FPL and Matchday 3 in UCL Fantasy. Take care and enjoy the football. I will see you very soon.